Good evening, everyone. The time is 6:39 on Tuesday, March 22nd, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. First up on the agenda is our consent agenda. I think we'll push the minutes to next time because we don't see them in the folder, so we'll just add them for next time. And then warrant 0056, and is that one in there? I don't see that one in there either. So there must be a glitch because you said, yeah. So we'll just push those to next time if that's all right with everyone.
Well, but we got to see them in person, so I'm okay with making a motion to approve them.
We all just signed off on it.
Looked at it.
I wasn't sure if it was is it the right number? 0056?
Yep.
All right, yeah, so we can go ahead and vote on warrant 0056.
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Thanks for that catch, Audrey.
Yep.
I know I just signed it too. It wasn't close enough for me to see.
That's why I was like looking through it as we were.
Okay, next up is visitors' comments. Any citizen wishing to speak before the committee must sign in with the administrative assistant prior to the opening of the regular session of the school committee. The visitor will identify themselves by name and address and shall speak for no longer than 3 minutes. For anyone who is unable to sign in ahead of time, we ask that you clearly state your name and address so that this information can be included in the record for the meeting. Do we have some attendees up there, Alex?
We got the phone number, Ellie, these three people, Brittany, Emma, Megan, Nancy, Sue, and the lady, the new editor from the Sentinel.
Okay. Are there any visitors' comments? We'll give it a half a second. Seeing none, we will go ahead.
I like that new addition at the bottom there.
Just
Yeah. For anyone who's unable to sign, that's the first time I feel like you've said that.
I've been on the past few.
Oh, okay.
Maybe I'm speaking more clearly
Maybe.
tonight.
That is on the past few, as I have it right next to me. Like,
next is Marcus. Welcome.
Marcus.
Hello. All right. The program of studies is fully updated and done, and course selections have gone out, this is much earlier than it has been throughout the past. And that's going to be presented at April 12th, the full program of studies, as well as we're going to be looking to post it on the portal and school website so students can view and read through it and use it to pick out their courses and use it as a resource. For senior events, we also have that coming up on the agenda, as I heard. But I would just like to point out that now that we're back to the normalest times we've seen since, battalions this Friday night, we got principals list on April 6th. The junior high is having a luau in May, which they had prior, and the NHS induction.
April 27th.
Yeah, that's the end of April. NHS induction is April 6th.
27th or 26th for NHS, I think.
It's the 6th of April for NHS.
NHS, and then the principal's list is 26.
Oh, all right. I must have read that backwards in the last thing.
And then also the sports banquet later in the spring.
That's in May for sure.
And then I also talked to someone who's taking the HCC class that's going through GHS, so it's just for the GHS kids. So the current course offered is philosophy, and they're currently discussing artificial intelligence, and it's all obviously philosophical and hypothetical, but in the future when the artificial intelligence if they gain enough consciousness to have and function on their own, like debating rights and how we would treat them if that was the case.
That's cool.
Randy Callahan, who's from Safe Schools, has been meeting with GSA members, come up with ideas for what they'd like to see around the school. And we'll also be meeting with staff April 5th. And then depending on what we find from the staff and with the GSA, there'll be future assemblies with the students. There's this new resource we're using called Math Space. funded by the Department of Ed, so it's completely free to us. It creates tasks and it's completely geared towards the MCAS that's created by the state. It's offered to 7th and 11th grade right now as an extra resource to like expand on just like pass and review and get them prepared more for MCAS. And it will also be eventually rolled out throughout the whole district over in Takes. And it's similar to IXL in the way that it like tests and adapts depending on how the student is doing, except it's geared more towards
What's the name of that again?
math space.
Math.
There's also an ELA, one that's connected to it, but that's going. A little highlight on our class that we have right now. Mr. Free has a class with the junior high kids called Automation and Robotics. And so they had just recently built cars and they were like testing them in the hallway, seeing how they would drive. Yeah, so that's my main program to build them all themselves. Just a wrap up from winter sports, boys and girls both qualified for state championships and made it a few rounds in, but didn't make it all the way, unfortunately. A shout out to Quinn, who's a female wrestler that's part of our club from the Chinese American School, and she got 4th overall in her weight class in the state. Spring sports started yesterday with tryouts. The winter track club has been extended into the spring. This Thursday and Friday, there are parent conferences at East Meadow, and the 7th and 8th graders are going to be going over here, and they're going to be like presenting the classes and some of the cool things that we get to do over at high school to try and like, get the parents excited and see what some of the things their kids could be doing next year. Admin and teachers had also went over to introduce themselves to the 6th graders, as well as a group of 11th graders, including myself. It was me, Eva Bartos, Max Lemke, and Victoria Quinlan. We went over here and we had about an hour just to talk about our experience throughout the high school and try and make a connection between the seniors next year, because they're going to be 7th graders will be seniors. Just trying to make a connection with them. That was good. We had a lot of fun. It was really like we didn't run out of time. Well, we did run out of time. We still have plenty of things to say, and the conversation was still flowing. They had plenty of questions for us, so it was really good. I had fun.
I did too.
And lastly, we have a life skills program that we're trying to develop at the high school. So we'll have such things like basic cooking, and we would have the senior interns that we do now that come over to the from high school over to East Meadow to assist over here. They could be working with the students and starting. So we'll be starting a simple basic one next year and trying to develop and grow it throughout the next few years. And we're currently cleaning up and preparing a space for that.
Would it be in the old, what I would say the old home ec rooms?
Right.
That's the current plan, and it's an extension of the ABA program that we offer here. Students are getting older, having a place for them to transition into.
Can anyone take it, or is it for a specific targeted group of
For a
students?
targeted group of students.
Awesome.
Is my question as well, whether or not we were going to be able to like kind of, again, using that bit of incorporation of all kind of students into it too, but.
Potentially down the road, but right now it's really building up that program.
It sounds like there's some like reverse inclusion opportunities happening if you're using some students
Yes.
that would come towards East Meadow and do some kind of mentoring kind of in that same programming. So that's some great opportunities.
Yeah, so we have primarily seniors, I think a handful of juniors as well, but seniors as part of this high school senior intern in education program. I think there's 22 seniors who are supporting grades K through 8. And some of them are working in this program, and that would be an opportunity that instead of coming to East Meadow to support it, they could be doing it at the high school. So yeah, similar to like reverse inclusion, as you said.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else, Marcus? Any questions for Marcus? That was awesome. I really appreciate your reports, Marcus.
Yes.
Head out.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
See you later. Is Cheryl on?
Cheryl is not on.
Okay, first up is the McKinney Vento donation. From Megan, you promote her, please?
Make a share part, right?
Yep.
Yes.
So do that. And then a date, she will come up, that's okay. She will go into. You should be on.
Megan, are you there?
I am. I can't start my video. That's all. So if that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think that that's fine.
Okay, great. So thank you for having me on tonight. I just wanted to, this would be a vote for you guys. We received a donation of, let me just pull it up here. Did I lose it? $600 in gift cards and $500 to support the homeless youth in Granby from the Junior League of Greater Springfield. This is kind of a result of another grant that we had received earlier this year. We applied for a competitive grant through the American Rescue Plan to support homeless children and youth with two other schools, Pathfinder and Quabbin Regional. And so at the time we had a very small number of students who were identified as homeless. And since we received the grant, that number has more than doubled, just kind of showing some of the challenges that students and families in our district are experiencing, but also us trying to bolster our program to support those families. So we've, with the grant money we received back in December, we dedicated a mentor to support students and received additional gift cards that we'll be able to give out to families. So this additional funds would allow us to do more for the subgroup of population of our students, and make sure that their needs are being met as we become aware of them.
Excellent. Is there any questions for Megan? If not, I'll take the motion to accept the donation.
I'll make the motion to accept the donation.
And can I have a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Thank you, Megan.
Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks, you
Thank you,
too.
Megan.
And
We're gonna go now, gonna promote Emma Klikaka. She might be the phone number, I'm guessing, because I didn't see her name. Oh, she is? Emma K, yep, that would be her. And then Ally as well?
Yes.
And Ally as well. Emma, are you there?
Hello.
Hi, Emma. Ally, are you there?
I think I was going to be
But it says I
presenting.
can't share my video.
Okay. Go ahead, Emma.
Oh, no, sorry. I wasn't sure if she was there. I know I was going to present kind of what our plans were for the senior events.
Excellent.
Okay, so I believe that we have shared with you our class of 2022 senior events sheet. It should have events beginning on May 20th.
Yes, we have it.
So I believe what we are seeking approval for today is our field trip to High Meadows on Friday, May 27th, as well as our senior trip to the Red Sox on Sunday, May 22nd, where we would depart from the school at 6:45, about 6:45, and return home at about 9 p.m. And the game is at 1:35, so that would give us some time in the morning to kind of walk around Boston with our chaperones and do sort of other nice things in Boston before our game.
Are we looking at each event, each
Do we need to
day,
do,
or just
do we need to
Friday and
just vote on
Sunday?
the two separate ones?
Two that would require a school committee vote would be
Friday and Sunday.
really just Friday, because technically the Red Sox game is in state, but High Meadows is out of state, so school committee would have to approve that.
It says the trip on both, so we can vote on both.
Yeah, I just put that in there for some reason, because it said that, because she was talking about it, but thinking about it, but it can't hurt to.
Yeah, and we don't need to approve prom or anything else, right?
No.
And then we can talk about graduation when we get closer, I guess, right? All right, can I have since they're listed separately and they're two separate days and one's in state and one's out, I think we'll go ahead and vote on each individual one. So the first will be for the senior trip on Sunday, May 22nd for the Red Sox game. Can I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. And the second is on Friday, May 27th. It says 2021, but I'm sure it's supposed to be 2022. For High Meadows, for their senior picnic. That's being updated as we speak, which is great. Can I have a motion?
I'll make the motion to approve the field trip on Friday, May 27th to High Meadows.
Second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Excellent. That sounds like a lot of fun. Anything else that we need to approve on here?
Not that I believe, no.
Okay. Do we, is it outside?
I don't know.
Is graduation outside?
I believe we're planning on that, yes. But we've just started kind of discussing what that's going to look like.
Excellent. All right. Any other questions for Emma? All right. Have fun.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Allie, you're going to stay on for the field, and I think we need to promote Brittany. I think I saw her name on it.
Yeah, there, yes.
Give us a few seconds.
There, now she's got video. Yep, Brittany's slide. Put you that Jim there.
That's it for right now.
Okay, something about offense in fields.
Hi, everyone. How are you? So this is for, we're looking to eventually put in a baseball fence for the baseball field. But I first want to start by saying that, you know, each year it seems that something different has been tackled, something small, whether it's, you know, something big for whether it's the baseball fields or it's for the soccer fields, anything that comes between fall or spring. So I kind of just want to give a quick rundown of what we're looking to do. Again, this is kind of just information only, so you kind of know where we're looking and what things that we want to do in the future. And again, this is obviously subject to change depending on, you know, how things go. So for April and May, we're looking to put in a baseball fence. And then hopefully in the summer, we're looking to do a couple more things. And those include a varsity softball field irrigation system. We're also looking to put a fence in for varsity softball. There's also softball field work that we're looking to do, some overseeding. Softball field clay bricks to be installed. And again, this is all things that are, you know, subject to change and things that we just kind of wanted to inform you on what we're looking to do. And I know this is all about the baseball fence, and we have been in the process of just looking at quotes and what it might, be wise or be price wise. And what we're looking for today is a vote, because we have, I think, 3 donations. And the first one is from People's Bank, which is for $200. The Fields Committee donated $1,500. And also the Booster Club is another $1,500 as well. So again, I just, these are things that we're looking to eventually do, but we would love to get your vote on those donations. Allie, I don't know if there's anything that you wanted to add. Okay.
No, I don't think so. Just the donations that we've been receiving. We're just trying to be fully transparent with what the field work will look like. That's why we brought that proposal and that timeline to you. So if there's any questions out there in the community, we started, we have a commitment to the fields over the past year. And Peter Gay, I think we were here a year ago talking about the work that he had done. So right now we're in a phase where we're shifting now towards other fields. So we just wanted to put it out there, talk about it. And Brittany pretty much captured everything. So we did receive 3 checks that we need to have accepted. We do have leftover money from the Woodcock donations that you accepted last school year. And we would be using some of those funds as well.
And those were already earmarked for baseball, so it makes sense that they would go for the baseball fields.
Yeah,
I'm not seeing the document though.
Yeah. Allie, I don't see
It was an email sent.
Oh, it's the email. Okay.
I'm sure.
Thank you.
We updated the document and I shared it with you again. That was probably the quickest way to get to you. Because I feel like when you get it, it's in PDF form, and any changes that we make, sometimes we make changes up until like a half an hour before the meeting, just so it's accurate for you.
So these donations are then, when we vote to accept them, they'll be 100% earmarked for the fence.
Yes.
And we already have the quotes so this is enough money to do that?
We're working towards it.
Oh, okay.
We're definitely working towards it. That's why there was a shift in the timeline piece of it. And, there's additional work. Believe it or not, when you can't just put a fence up. Sounds easy, but we have to pull a permit for it, reach out to DigSafe. So there's some additional steps that needs to happen. So we will be putting the temporary fence up that goes up every spring. So we're going to be putting that up and crossing our fingers that we'll be able to raise the rest of the funds, that we need in order to have the permanent fence put up.
Excellent.
Allie, do you mind or Brittany talking a little bit about the plan for the fence, right? I think we're hearing the fence and spending this money on it, but some opportunities that might present.
Can you say that again? I missed the first half of what you said.
Can you just talk a little bit about the opportunities that having a permanent fence might present for the athletic department?
Oh, as in the pros? Everything.
The opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a field that has a permanent fence, we also can rent it out. I mean, that's the first and foremost, is where we're all thinking outside the box here on how we can raise additional funds for this. But when you put up a permanent fence, we've been working, and I know Adam and I, when we first met, we started talking about this ads campaign, and Pete Gay has committed to working with the Fields Committee and Brittany and taking that over. It is a lot of work. What that looks like is Pete and Brittany will be going out to the community and soliciting, area businesses to purchase and sponsor their ad being on our fence. So what that could look like is, if we go down to Dressel's and we propose the idea, they could give us a $200 donation, and we then take their ad right? And we put it on vinyl and attach it to the fence. So that becomes a permanent fixture for the whole season. So that's the goal of it. And we're hoping that the ads campaign, that's what we're calling it, will be successful in raising the rest of the money that we need.
And play wise too. I mean, even come to like, playoff games and everything else, we could always, have our field, even if whether it's our team or not. I mean, we can raise money that way as well and bring in, other schools to use what we have.
So the fences are something that are in an iteration of our budget right now. They might not be in the final iteration of our budget, but part of the thinking is that the fences would likely pay for themselves over time and then allow us to generate revenue for athletics. So again, trying to think of ways that we become less dependent on outside sources. This isn't going to solve all of our financial challenges, certainly not, but another chunk of money that we might be able to use and repurpose back to our athletics programs.
And I see on here how it says Hampshire Fence. Is that who we've gone to for the bids or for the estimates?
We have 2 quotes. One was from Jesse Steele from Bay State Fence. That was a few years ago when we tried to put a permanent fence up a few years ago, but unfortunately budget didn't allow us to. So the second one is from Hampshire Fence. It's Petruno. I think he had Jess Petruno graduated from Granby a few years back, actually probably about 5 years now, maybe 6. So trying to stay local. And he's been very good to us. We're excited for it. Again, the reality of it happening, maybe midway towards the end of the season. It really is going to come down to, the work that Peter and Brittany and we all collectively can do in the town. It's a lot of behind the scenes work. So, and I appreciate Peter stepping in for John White and helping out with that fields committee because he's been an instrumental component to improving our fields in general. And the hope is that we shift that towards the softball fields being next. If you look at the condition of the softball fields, they're nowhere in the condition of the baseball field. So it doesn't make sense to tackle the softball field first. The softball field is the field that needs the overhaul that the baseball field got last year. So it happens in bits and pieces. But we have a great community and the community's behind us for sure. And the fields committee, and we'll make it happen. We'll be creative and we'll make it happen for the kids.
Can I have a motion to accept the $3,200 in a donation for the baseball fence?
I'll make that motion.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent work. I'm looking forward to seeing that fence up for sure.
Us too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Now for some fun. Next up, school choice open slots.
So we did put a document in the folder that lists residents who have been previously enrolled or are enrolling. Also have the non-residents enrolled in that grade and projected enrollment for next year, and then what we're proposing for potential school choice seats. I'll call it up from the get-go. The kindergarten one is a really difficult decision right now. We have 33 responses in. We're awaiting still 9 responses. And we know that 6 of those residents were on a list at Children's First as well. Children's First, when we had checked in with Donna, had 18 students apply for 15 spots, and 6 of those were Granby residents. So you can think that in the worst case scenario, 3 of the Granby residents don't get in. That could potentially add to our numbers. But again, we still haven't heard, and we're also going off a census that is a year old. So we're at 33 right now, which could certainly allow for 2 kindergarten classrooms, but there's a long way to the finish line when we consider enrollment trends that could potentially happen over the summer and the rest of the spring. Go ahead.
No, I've looked at this a number of times and I have yet to formulate a valid question.
I feel like I have a bunch of questions, but I'm not sure there's any answers, but it's all the things kind of running through my head. You know, we've talked about when it comes to class sizes, are we sticking at, you know, that 20 number? Are we looking to do a little higher? Granted, there's not any of them. Most of them already have school choice numbers included in them. You know, are we getting to a point too where we're including enough school choice kids that we're essentially opening a third classroom dedicated to school choice, which I am big about holding on to my word. And we at one point shared that we don't do that. And then this would be saying that we almost are.
Well, where so?
First grade.
Well, just that, yeah.
Nine
the nine and-
non-residents previously enrolled,
Yeah.
and now we're suggesting 8 more.
Well, that right now is 3 classes. So if we wanted to have a class of 23 and 24, then we wouldn't have to open up any seats there.
So one of the things that I found that I've also kind of learned through the process, and take it for what it is, but how we include our inclusion kids that are not typically in the classroom in our numbers too, which is, I like that we do that, to be honest, because from my experience, when that's not included, that's how you end up with 30 kids in your room
Right.
at points during the day. So it is nice that we do that. But then, and part of me also thinks, you know, we want people coming in and taking walks around, and then they walk in and see a class with 15 or 16 students because 3 are not in right now because they're in their other program or whatever else. You know, so then it starts, is 20 our magic number, or is it more like 22 because those kids are only pushing in for an hour or 2 per day? So, and I think that's a discussion we need to have as a school committee of, you know, we're resting our numbers, at least last year, the discussion was right at 20, but is that our number? You know, we're talking about having a capacity issue and then the benefits of having our school choice kids in. And granted, you know, you'll end up with years where kids, you know, have a bigger class, I know in some regards, which isn't always beneficial, but then, you know, in our older, I don't know. So I feel like this is stuff we kind of need to talk about rather than looking at the chart and be like, all right, we added everyone up. So there's 3 classes of 20 or, you know, about 20 kids. But then how does that actually look?
Well,
Sorry, that was a lot.
no, it's
Just
not a
all the
lot.
things kind of.
When we start having these school choice conversations, it becomes very convoluted because it's not just about school choice because
For absolutely sure. Yes.
like, you know, I feel like we could do 7 through 12 school choice and it's like, okay, we can be done. If your numbers are good with those, like, if you guys are good, like, that's off the table for me. I feel like
Correct.
that's,
Agreed.
that's a no-brainer. We don't have to have massive amounts of conversation.
Agreed.
Because what we've learned throughout this whole process is the class size in high school, because of how they move about their day and the specials and the different programming, that's not a problem. The real problem is within these 4 walls, being quite literal, like within this building where we are is the problem. And what you just said is one of the things that I could never eloquently say. And so I appreciate it because that was one of the things that I was trying to say is if we are doing the inclusion classroom, but they're not really fully in the classroom for the whole day, is it really that 20 number, or can we do 22 or 23 for when they sit there, or is it a special? Is it one math class? But then there's always people there's always seems like there's, from what I can understand, and it's been a little while since my kids have been here, but kids are being pulled out for reading. So maybe they're not, you know, but if not a kid that's in an inclusion program, there's a lot of back and forth in those numbers. And I know it becomes then like this weird scheduling nightmare, but if as a general rule throughout the day, however you slice it and dice it, there's 15 kids in the classroom across the board because of how we're doing the ins and outs, does that allow us to go over that 20 number? Because it's never going to be except for a very short amount of time. Am I saying what you were, are we saying the same thing or am I not right?
We're on the same page.
Okay.
Yes.
So that becomes an incredible discussion.
Correct.
And I don't know, honestly, I don't know how to tackle it. Like, I don't know, because we've tried a number of ways, I feel like, to try to get those numbers. And I don't think there's an easy way to do it. So
Well, I don't know that we necessarily need to get those numbers, but we need to make a decision about where we stand with this piece. So like I said, when you start going through it, 57,
Just first
sorry.
grade, there's 5 students coming from Children First, not reflected on this.
So
Right, but there's still 8 proposed.
Right, so that would bring us to 60, which would still leave leeway for.
But look at your non-resident and look at your proposed. 8 plus 9 is 17, right? Am I?
No, what I would
Please don't make me
say
do math
is
on
the
the
total
spot.
would be 60. The total would be 60, so there'd still be room for a resident move-in.
But she's saying 17 school choice seats is enough for one kid. Like, it could potentially
Thank
be
you.
that one entire classroom
Yeah.
would be school choice. And that's
Yeah.
where we've had conversations where we said we would never, but I guess,
Well, not never, but it is not our intention.
and that is
Right.
our intention, but I guess, like, I see exactly what you're saying math wise, but we're not saying 8 to open another classroom, like with the 9 that we already have and the 5 coming from Children First, it brings us to that number where we still have the ability
Right,
to top it
because
up.
we
I
get,
think Audrey's right. I think the damage was done.
correct,
last year.
basically.
Mm-hmm.
Basically. So then it becomes to this weird point
Yeah.
of like, if you didn't include those 8, what would your number be? Is that
Which is what we're looking at right now in current K.
52.
correct? Plus 6 more.
No, I'm saying, right, but that's what we're looking at right now with this
Correct.
proposed kindergarten.
Yes.
Are we going to do the same?
Right. But again,
Yeah.
it's
It's
so
hard.
in the weeds.
Mm-hmm.
But that's I think that's the only place we can be for that.
I know.
And I do.
So then you
think-
become to that point, like, do you not include those 8? You're still at 3, like, because kids could move out and then that could be another group. You potentially could have 2, or do you take the chance and then you bring in the school choice? And again, it's nothing against school choice. It's about looking at what what we have said that our intentions are and making sure that we're holding true to that also and being mindful of what we're putting out there. So
I'm going to propose something for just a minute. Let's take a 5-minute conversation and talk about class size first and see where we feel, because we have to ultimately make a decision about our school choice because we have to get it out there. Is that?
everywhere else is opening theirs right now.
Yeah, the
Yes.
sooner the better, and not every grade level decision needs to be made tonight
Right.
either.
So one thing I think is, realistically, we'll take a temperature check in 5 minutes, but let's start to have some of these class size discussions. Because I think if we feel where we all are about that, that becomes easier for us to have the decision about, I'm choking, about how we view these school choice numbers. Does that make sense?
Just to kind of go off of that a little bit too. The tricky part is also the fact that obviously administration here that is proposing these I want to not take that away. They know their grade best. They know those kids in that grade best. They know the needs of the kids in the grade best of, how much is pushing in, pulling out, whatever else. So I don't want to take that away from this decision, but when you're looking at it and it's saying, oh, we've got 57, 3 more gets us to 20 each, 60, like that's our number. Oh, we have 55, 5 more. Like, it just seems like a very cap it at 20, done. And I just don't want the decision to be made that way. Like, I would love to, and I know we need to make the decision, but I would love to see more like, you know what, I'm just pulling this out of my head. Second grade, they actually don't have a lot of kids that are pulling out. Like we do need to keep that grade kind of low at 20, 20, 20, or, you know, where maybe there's a lot of more movement going on in sixth grade or fourth, whatever the case may be. And kind of it, you know, we call it thoughtful planning. Like, so it's not just picking a number and sticking with it. It's purposeful.
So I agree, but I feel like.
I'm just noting this for going forward. I feel like, you know.
But I thought that we had charged them to do that sort of thoughtful planning. So is it because the number ends up at 60 that we're, you know, it doesn't feel that thoughtful that way, or?
Well, because I don't think that the need necessarily would be exactly 60 in every grade level from what Audrey was saying. Like
it's 57.
That's,
But- right.
I think that was supposed to be 5 proposed seats and not 10.
And then grade 7 is 69.
Well, I don't think that 7 through 12 matters though.
Okay.
I'm not.
Because of the
that
way it's
sounds
structured.
wrong. I mean, but it really,
Right.
exactly. Like, I don't mean it like
No,
that.
I get
I
that.
do. Sorry. I'm so.
Well, I'm trying to play devil's advocate.
back and come
just a smidge, like, you know, the numbers don't.
We could even say 6 to 12 doesn't matter because 6 has 0 proposed.
But I do have a question.
Which I have a comment about that one too, but go ahead.
So if we have 3 classrooms and we had stated that we didn't want more than 20 kids in a classroom, so wouldn't that necessarily cap us at 20 per classroom?
But we don't have to stay to 20. That's the conversation, right? Like we can.
So this is where I'm going to backtrack us and I want to have the conversation for a few minutes about class.
Have it to be quiet.
What's
No,
our
I don't
magic
want that.
number?
No,
But you to be quiet because you have a dual hat role in this because you're a teacher and Jill has an administrator role and you guys have lenses that I don't have. I don't have that perspective. Stephanie worked in the school a little bit, so she has a different lens. I don't know if you've ever worked in the school, but so your input is very valuable because you have a different lens that you're seeing things through. But what we have to do is kind of pull back a little bit and not just see things through that lens and try to look at it through the bigger picture lens. So one of the things that I'm just going to start us off is when I first started on the school committee, Emery and I had discussion about class size, and it's always been, not always, like, you know, the general rule in Granby has been the smaller class size, and that's one of our biggest attractions are. And my pushback to him was, just because we've always done that doesn't mean it's the only way to do it. Like I know, and it wasn't an always, because when I was a kid, you know, many moons ago, and I know education has changed, but we had more than 20 in a kid. Like our class sizes weren't that small. So I know that it's a possibility, but I'm not going to start from framing it there. But what I want to do is, if we go above that 20 number, does that help us in our capacity issue? Because I know when this whole thing started a couple of years ago, the rooms are rated for 24 to 27 students. I think every room in the older rooms above kindergarten has like 26 cubbies. So that's what, when they designed this with all the guidelines, they said was the max that they could do. And then we, you know, got all screwed up with COVID guidelines and everything. And we said we didn't want to go that big. And I understand that. But it doesn't mean that we can only go to 20 either, right? So that's all I'm going to say about that. So now I just kind of want to have some conversation we'll do 7 minutes to end at 7:30 about class size. Go, Jen.
So I do have, as a parent, sitting and looking at 20 kids in a class, especially in the elementary, I'm looking for student learning, not like just on what I feel it should be, but a student's capability of learning with that many students is a lot to ask from them.
And I'm totally being flip right now.
Yeah.
But schools we're constantly compared to as higher have much higher numbers than we do. I'm not going to speak for Belchertown 100%, but I have friends that have kids in Belchertown, and they have 25 to 28, in some cases 30 kids in a class. And they're held in a much higher regard because they have more money and whatever, but.
I'm not saying that. I'm just
saying
saying,
that just because I think teachers can teach to that many kids because they're doing it in districts all around us.
I'm not disagreeing there.
Okay.
I'm just saying for some students, that would be a lot. And I'm not saying that we have to do it that way.
But I think that.
My feeling is I don't think it should go up
But I
to
do think part of
26.
I'm not saying 26, I'm just saying I think we might have the ability to do more than 20 being our magic number. And also I'm hearing that we have an amazing special ed program here that's helped to, help our kids catch up. So if we need to do something to help kids in a larger class, I think we've got the parameters to do that, right?
Yep.
I don't want to speak completely out of turn.
No, I just
Some of
need
that
to know that
process,
there's a
like, takes,
support.
like, it's a shift in just our approach. So to say, the special ed staff is gonna address these gaps on their own, right, with the
Well, I
support of
mean,
the
I think
content
we do a good
teacher.
job of catching the gaps, right?
Yeah, I think we're doing a better job. We're collecting better assessment data, talking to teachers about how to use that assessment data. So I think, yes, absolutely. And I think the last 2 years, this year, it's really difficult.
Right, well, I mean,
Right,
we're
it's
coming out of this weird anomaly.
Right.
Jill, what are you thinking?
I feel like there are so many variables that without sitting in front of a group of kids, it is impossible to know and plan for. You can, coming from a place of putting together 24 classrooms of students, you can do the best job you think with all the information in the world and still create a dynamic in a classroom that you never intended for nor knew.
Right, but
So
is that, I mean.
But I guess my point is, to me, there certainly is probably a ceiling, like a top number that maybe we don't want to go beyond. But for me, that would probably be it. Other than that, anything that maybe falls under that number, and maybe it's different, K to 2 versus 3 to 6, especially when maybe you're shifting kind of your priorities with learning to read versus reading to learn. And maybe those numbers might look a little different versus by a couple students.
So I like that approach. So are we in agreement then that for the K to 2, the 20 is a good number? Or is that too high? If we say that that's too high, then we've got a bigger capacity issue on our hands based on the numbers that we've got.
And I don't, if you end up with a classroom that's lower, I don't think that's a bad thing. If there's a way to structure that, that's not a bad thing. I just think that if you're faced with a situation where you, at the beginning of a school year, when you plan for 2 classes and you have 4 kids move in, and that moves your number in the K room to 21 and 20, maybe we got to sit tight for a while and see what that looks like before adding in a 3rd classroom. And because we've accepted school choice, we start to add in, 10 more seats. I guess that's kind of where I'm sitting, because we said the number was, 19 in K or something like that. Because who knows what the dynamics in the classroom will look like? Who knows if the thing at that point is adding additional, adult support to a classroom versus creating, a new teacher setting with space and adult support added into that classroom. I think there's just.
But that dynamic, even with our 20, we don't know. We could be planning for 20, which has been our magic number right along. And I know that it happens with a weird dynamic for certain age groups, because it happened to one of my daughter's classes. They were good, and a bunch of kids went through a growth spurt, and there was learning challenges and they had to bring in paras and, programs were brought and the dynamic completely changed. And for a few years, and then a student moved out, was put in a different program. And then he came back and, it's fine, so you can't, I don't think you can ever plan on a dynamic, 20 and that grade at that time was way too many. The teacher was like, how could I just have like 4 in a class and I think I might be able to make it through with my hair.
Well, and I guess that's my point, like to say 20 and then one class of 20 could look very different than another class of 20.
But I'm just saying, I don't think you could, I don't.
It's hard. And we even have we've had this grade 6 that hasn't had school choice, but this year alone, there was 3 kids that moved into that class. There's that grade 6, 46, I think actually as of today would be 47, I believe. There was 1 new student today. That was our nest egg to have that as 2. And we do have 24 and 23 in that room because kids have moved into town, which is great. And we have to have room, but that's where that number, you have to know that it could very well change.
Well, and part of this number too, knowing instances that I do, there is a non-resident previously enrolled that was formerly a resident. So went from, it would have been a 41 as a resident and 5, but they moved across town lines. So that now they're considered a school choice student where they wouldn't have,
Right,
so
they were still in the number. I'm just saying that people do move in and out. So even if you want to say that was going to be our 0 school choice kids, that grade had 3 kids move in this year. So it is at 23 and 24. So to also say that our cap is 20, but then certain classes are well over 20, I don't want to put that out there either because people are going to be listening to this very upset that there are some classes that are over 20 and then what?
We say we try to.
But let me clarify. I don't mean a cap, we cannot go beyond this. I think the intention is that we would prefer to have smaller class sizes in this way, because you can't put a number on anything.
We could get completely bombarded with all the new homes that are going up. If we get, someone moves in with 8 kids, octuplets in 6th grade, there's not much we're going to be able to do.
Right.
All right, so it's 7:30. So do we want to have more discussion about class size? Because I just.
So if we're in agreement on the high school, junior, senior high school, can we just move that forward?
I would adjust that 7th grade though, that shouldn't be time.
Well,
you always get a lot of kids in that grade?
No.
So my other question though, as far as the 7th grade, is, do we have an account or any feelers out there do we have 6 that are potentially going elsewhere and not heading over to the high school that we should leave that as a 10?
Not that we've been made aware of, not that I've been made aware of.
But you wouldn't typically normally be made aware of that at this point.
Probably.
So I think that's, I don't know how many people would be running it's very premature, but that is a good point because traditionally the data's shown that 7th grade does dip.
Yeah.
So is it probably urgent to change that to a 5? I don't know. That's up to your discretion.
Can we accommodate 69 in 7th grade? And is that 69?
I mean, we.
Probably.
Is this current grade 7 or next year grade 7?
Next year's.
Thanks. I always screw that up.
This is very ideal, especially if we got anywhere close to the 10 in grade 8, then it would become challenging.
Okay. So do you want to go in and adjust that number so we can vote at least?
Because this is a PDF.
PDF, okay.
Go ahead.
We can make a note.
We can.
You said
So 5 for grade 7?
I think that
Is Stacy on?
is a more reasonable number and.
Do we need to promote
We
Stacy?
can always adjust it.
Should we promote Stacy?
We can, she's driving home.
Oh,
No,
okay,
no.
never mind.
That's fine. No, yeah.
So we could always adjust it, like if we said 5 now and then we saw that dip, we could always at a future meeting say, oh, we filled those 5 spots, we can add
So
3
to
more,
be
5
clear,
more.
we can adjust number, as long as there are seats open, we can adjust,
Only to
Up.
add.
but we cannot adjust down. And for those instances where there are zeros, the way I understood it is if we say in the 6th grade, we lose 4 families, 4 students, we can take a later vote to open 1 or 2 seats for the 6th grade only if we chose to, but we can't take any seats away.
Cases only if we need.
Okay.
Texted me.
Do we want to promote her for questions for data? Okay.
Let her walk in the door.
Yes.
She's in the driveway. No.
So we're saying grade 7 would be 5 seats. Grade 8 are we good with the 10 and grade 8, or do we want to adjust that as well? Let's do the easy group, 7 through 12, right?
And I'm just gonna, no, I'm just gonna,
No, please don't say it.
no, I'm good.
Well, then I've got a quick question for grade 12. So proposed is 4. I remember that we talked about that prior and we said that we typically didn't do seniors. Is that just something that's been modified and comfortable with doing?
I think accepting seniors is challenging, and then I think we missed an opportunity this September when South Hadley was closed for 3 weeks, and we lost some potential students who with a program whose curriculum would have aligned fairly well with ours. But there are
But in that,
instances where you might get somebody from a career tech school that
But I'll play devil's advocate because that career tech student could move in and become a resident that we would have had to accept and have to figure it out. So I feel like if someone wants to come to Granby in their senior year, chances are they were here at some point. They're not just randomly picking
yeah, and I think
Granby to
in
graduate.
general, at the high school, like we're nimble enough where we can adjust to most circumstances. Might there be some outliers where we have to get very creative? Potentially, but I think.
But isn't that part of the review that you're looking at for an applicant, for a student that's coming in, go to review all that kind of stuff?
Yes, but if they apply, say after August, and there's openings, you're wasting your time reviewing because you have to accept them. If there's open seats.
So, all right.
That's fine. I just wanted the clarity because I know traditionally it was 0. So
Based on,
I'm not saying
Sure.
deny, but you can have a conversation with them and say,
oh, yeah,
that's all, like, there is a review process.
yes, absolutely. You can have that conversation and make that choice theirs. But if we have that open seat and they're determined to come, then we would have to accept.
and that's in any grade. If you have open seats, then they are approved.
Yes. And if you have more applicants than open seats, then it goes to a lottery. Siblings get preference before you get there, as long as there's open seats in that grade level, siblings will get preference. But if there's more siblings than open seats, that also goes.
So that's my follow-up question is where are we coming across with that? Because we do have now 1, 2, 3 spots that all are 0. We talk about missed opportunities. Is that a potential missed opportunity with the 3 that have 0, that there's potentially siblings that would be coming here, but we're not having come here because we don't have seats?
Well, technically there's 4
Potentially.
because there's a pre-K, kindergarten.
Well, I wasn't counting pre-K because we don't do school choice in pre-K.
But we don't say don't because we had a pre-K student that was a school choice for
Programmatic.
Thank you. Programmatic needs.
Potentially, I would think the sibling thing in K and beyond. But if there's not space, because if we're looking at class sizes and, I mean, that's
also just does
Think about
unfortunately.
Some of the census numbers that Audrey and the capacity and Megan and the capacity group have shared. We're a couple of years away from potentially filling these classes with residents, which is ideal in many ways because you get more funding for our residents than we do the school choice, but
And I think that's
So
the,
there's potential there, right? Like decisions we're making now, school choice students that we're accepting now in kindergarten, first, second, third grade could have siblings who don't get in because in 3 years, because we're gonna have 56 residents on the census and things like that. So that could be possible, and we don't know that even right now.
And that's common with school choice, though.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in any district, there are, there's wait lists. I know many families that are living it right now, or maybe one student's in one and they're waiting. That's part of, unfortunately, getting involved with a lottery system.
Yeah.
So even if we worry about the siblings this year for the 0-0s, like Stephen said, if we open spots in first grade and they have a 2-year-old sibling, who's to say that years from now it could still be 0? You know what I mean? That's
the gamble.
That's
that you take with waiting for a school choice spot in a different district.
Yeah, and I'm dealing with that with my own family, and we live in the district, but it's a program that has school choice, that allows you to choice in, that they only allow 2 siblings now, district-wide in first, and then they have another round and another round. So you're constantly waiting to see, which is not a great place to be as a parent, but you also understand that the district has to make those decisions.
So I feel like I just want to accomplish one part of this.
7 through
So 7 through 12. So grade 7, 5 seats. Grade 8, are we comfortable with the 10, or do you want to adjust that?
I would like to keeping them all to 65. That's what Ally and I had talked about. I think allows us the flexibility if we were to fill both grade levels.
So grade 7 would be 6, because 59 and 6 would be 65, right?
6, yeah, so 6, and then
Grade 7
No.
would be 5.
59 and 5 is not 65, it's 64. Would be 6.
Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I'm on the right lines.
So then grade 8 would be
I don't know why.
18 to make it 65.
So that seems.
Well,
That's not right.
no. Can,
I don't know.
Sorry.
And then, grade 9 is
Ally,
then.
are you?
Or is 60 our number, though?
And it's got to
I thought
be
it was
60.
Ally, what was the number that?
She got on yet?
It's gotta be, look at all the other ones.
Right, yeah.
It's got to be
16,
60, not
15.
But 7th and
65.
8th grade is like this weird thing, because it's like 57 and.
She got it.
Ally, so looking at this now, we had talked about a number where if they had filled them all, where we would still feel comfortable, but math isn't adding up for me here. Is 60 that number?
It's, we were looking for 65. I don't know what numbers you're looking at, but I think the problem is when it converts into a PDF, you can't see any changes that are made to it. So it may have been shared with you before we adjusted the numbers. We were looking
Everything
at,
adding to 60.
we were
so-
looking at leveling out at 65.
For all grades?
Do you
or
have
just
one that
7th
you
and
can
8th grade?
email us?
7 through 12, is it you're saying?
It was 7 through 12. I think the seniors were 5 though, right? I think there was 5 spots for the seniors.
We had 4. I see 4 here.
And that makes 60.
Right. And then every other number makes 60 except
Right.
for grade 7 and 8. Makes 69 and 57, which.
I will, sorry, I'm yelling at my son to the left of me. Let me try to pull up my copy of this document and see if I can share it with you. But ultimately, what Stephen said was what we were looking to do.
65 through 7 through 12.
Yes.
And that
I think
allows.
we're being fairly aggressive in grade 7 through 12 because our numbers are nothing like this. I think if we get N students in a given year, school choice it in, 7 through 12. That's promising.
Well, we've never had the numbers.
Right.
We've never had that many seats open.
Yeah, I don't know, since I've been in Granby, I don't think we've ever filled the open spots in any grade level. Okay, so we've never had like 8 seats in grade 7 and filled all 8 seats at that grade. But if you think long-term, that grade may have had more than 8, but we're not filling them when they get to 7, 8,
Except for
9,
grade
10.
4, we had to have.
So in, just by my math, if we're doing 65 per grade, open seats for 7 through 12 would be a total of 90.
We're never gonna fill. I don't say.
Well,
I would
let's
say never.
just keep it positive.
Can we talk about though, the fact that we can always add seats? So can we just start,
With what we have.
At 60 or,
yeah, or just.
So we can
even
make
just-
it an easy vote, so a number of seats so that the total class size becomes 60 in each grade. So to clarify, that means in 7th grade, that's only 1 seat.
Mhm.
Right, which is probably why they want 65.
unless we want to account for maybe that dip too, in that 1 grade. But
Like, you know,
Maybe that's why 7th and 8th grade, because we have, in Granby, we have the unique anomaly where we have kids move from 6th grade to a 7 through 12 high school. So some kids will stay with us for middle school and then make a switch in 9th grade.
Right.
So,
we also have 8th graders taking 9th grade classes, which are,
Right.
right?
Because
I
you
see what
want
you're
an
saying,
even
though.
number
I'd rather,
from 8th
Go
grade.
to
Say it again,
60 and then we can always increase if we need to.
okay, so
But that does only leave 1 spot for grade 7.
Yeah,
Yep.
and 13 for 8.
Well, but
we can add more seats.
what org for grade 7 do we do the 6? And then leave the rest?
I mean, I just think if
Leave the
Ally
rest
said that it was
as they are
intended to be
deducted.
65, I don't know why we wouldn't just go for 65 personally. If that was administration's intention, and that's what they've talked about, and they've obviously ran these numbers, like I would be comfortable just going with the 65 that Ally suggested.
I'm just,
I think there are, and I don't know that this is exactly what Jill's thinking, like there are some optics to it, right? Like to Audrey's earlier point about grade level, we know it's different grade 7 through 12. We get that, right? But other folks might look at it and say, now you're adding 15 to the 9 that you already have. That's 24 in grade 9, right? Like,
and I also feel like
I think what Jill's saying is if we say 60 and we hit that number and I come back to you and say, hey, we hit that number 60, but we can do 5 more, you guys could always open up
Yeah.
those 5
but
additional seats.
it's impossible, obviously, to take away.
Mhm.
And I'd rather not get into a situation where we're either asked questions about it, or we're in a situation where it's like, gee, if we had been given this opportunity to not have these other seats, we could have done A, B, C, or D. I wish we could have gone back and thought about things differently.
I'm okay with it.
Okay, so 60
For
as the total number
Total
for
number of
7 to
class.
12.
Yep.
Are we sticking with 7's current? Of 1,
I guess.
to be 60?
I mean, if, I'm okay with adjusting that like,
I feel like for 7th grade to accommodate for the dip that we'll see potentially anyway. So 7th grade would be
Possibly.
the only one to go to 65. Are you good with that,
I'm fine with that.
Jen?
Yeah,
But
but, no, but grade 8 would need 13 to be 60.
so that's, I mean, we're saying to get to,
We're just saying to get to.
Yeah.
stick it to, so
And we are, do we have to say the number specifically?
I think we're accommodating it by saying the total
Total
class size. 8
With the
through 12 would be
exception of-
60
Yeah.
and 7th grade 65.
Mhm.
Perfect.
I just need that as a motion.
Okay, go for it, Jill.
I'll make a motion to approve school choice seats for 7th grade, to open seats up to the number 65, and for grades 8 through 12 up to seats of totaling 60.
I will second.
All those in favor for school choice seats for 7 through 12?
Aye.
Approved unanimously. Okay, now the fun part.
Let's tackle 4 to 6 because I feel like that'll be.
Okay, 4 to 6.
So take it in pieces. And 2 of them are 0.
2 of them are 0. So grade 4 with 63 students as is 3 classes. Grade 5 accepting 7 at 60 becomes 3 classes.
It's currently 3 classes.
It's currently 3 classes. So one of them, they're just lower. So the 7 accommodate would be across the 3, one would have higher, right?
Yeah, but that, right, is part of the
Okay.
discussion.
And then grade 6, not to accept any. And keep it 46, and is that 2 or 3 classes?
2.
That's 2.
Okay, 23 each. All right. Discussion. Personally, I'm looking at it, and I think my gut is to drop the 7 from grade 5 down to 5. And I don't know why, if it's, I like 58 better than 60, I guess. I don't know. There's
But then
no-
that's still that 20 per class. So then you're dropping it below 20.
But you're not
per
adding
class.
any room for resident enrollment if anyone moves into the district. I think that's the concern. Because I actually did the same thing. I just like ran it and said, I like 58 because if that grade gets 2 more students or 3 more students and we keep it at the 60 and then it becomes 63, 64, it's just leaving a little
But
bit
if
more
it
room.
becomes 64, divide that by 3 and you have how many per class?
21.
21
Right, which,
and a third.
Which the
so
current
you have
6th grade
two
is
21s and a 22.
I know, and it's not ideal.
So
I'm just gonna put that out there. that
I was
it's-
just trying to not be
Has
so
not been
stuck on
enjoyable.
60.
Right.
Just be, you know, like we're not doing it just to 60. So 58, we have one that's lower.
Well, if anything, those are my younger grades that I'd really like to see those lower numbers in.
Yeah, but we haven't broached that yet because I just,
Well, I think that's why she's saying, if anything, keep the higher number like 7 here versus go down.
okay.
Because if you can keep a higher number like 7 here, and if you go to 22 or 23 in a
Group that can be more
fifth grade
independent.
versus
Like, here's my
first or
caveat.
second.
Is again, we are not part of or privy to, because it's not in our area of, you know, what are the needs of that group? What is, you know, the pull-out ratio, the push-in ratio? Are we moving to a more push-in ratio that we don't want these numbers to be more than 20, 20, 20? Like, I'm just, keep that in mind, please, for next year for me. I'm just struggling. I can't.
Whether, if,
Yeah, I know.
whether you're 20 or 23, like, and thinking about, I know it makes a big difference,
I do have a comment though.
but I do think as a 5th grade classroom, that is a manageable number.
So you're saying we could potentially open more?
No, I'm not saying that.
Well, you're talking about 23, 23. and-
No, but I'm saying if there were resident
Grade 6 is
enrollments
23.
that came in and, you know, to the tune of 5, 6 kids or whatever that. came
Right, you have to
in
think
that
it
grade.
takes 3 kids to make it a bigger number when it's divided by 3 classes. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so it's one gets one and then the next one gets one. Ideally, that doesn't always happen. I understand that as well.
Here's,
Go ahead, Jeff.
here's the thing though, if they're changing the structure and the
Well, we don't know that
classrooms
they are.
have, but if the classrooms have more support than they have than the past. Right? Doesn't that make a difference?
No, they don't have
That
more
would-
support
There's
than
no
they.
more
That
support in
would
all the
make a difference, but.
It would be
I don't know that
delivery.
We're there.
Yeah.
Yet.
Oh,
I
my,
would love.
to be there. So my question is
Like
if,
the budget impact of that, right, like, you have to be honest, that to add additional supports, the bigger classrooms cost more money. I think that's where we get in trouble with saying, well, now we've opened up school choice seats and, well, now you're having to add resources because you have more students. So I think that's certainly something to be wary of. And I guess the question I have on that grade 5, and I'm not hearing anyone say this nor suggest it, but would somebody think 53 could be 2 classes? Now, I would say that's too big, and if you look at any resident enrollment, then you're really in trouble. Which is why that 60 number does make sense for something like that, because we're going to be offering 3 classes regardless, and it would be 3 classes of 16, 16, and 16 or something right now, right? So you have room where you could add students in there, and it's not costing.
So I guess my only thought with this is that makes sense to me regardless. 53 is too big for 2. So you're going to have 3. So you might as well give the opportunity to fill the 3.
Correct.
However, knowing that grade 6 is 2 classes, if we add like the following year, then we could potentially have 60 in that grade 6. We would need to reserve a smaller class in another area to make up for the fact that in 23, 24, the grade 6 will still need 3 classes versus the 2 this year. Does that make sense?
Right. And that's essentially that grade first grade and
Yes.
kindergarten though, quite
That's what I was
honestly, but
gonna
there's
say.
nothing we can really do about that first grade now unless we left them just the way they are and did not do school choice, which again bears that question.
Correct.
So if next year kindergarten stays that way and then the following year it moves down and we still kept the other kindergarten at 2.
Correct.
Correct. And then that
So-
potentially we could add school choice kids in as a second grade because we would have more clarity. And
Yeah.
I just want to be clear, this is not a discussion of not including ours that have already been accepted. Like if for anybody that's watching, this is new school choice seats that we're speaking about, not those that have already been accepted and are already part of our community.
Anyone that's already been accepted, no
Right.
matter what grade you're in, for
Right.
school choice.
That's not
you're
the
ours
discussion
until
at
you
hand.
choose to leave or until you graduate from Granby Public Schools.
Correct.
And looking at the capacity presentation, Jen, Millett's suggestion, there's potential there because 23, 24, the projected kindergarten number, again, this will be
3 years
at
out.
that point, was 36, where this year was 44, and we're already saying
Well, this
So
year
it
it's
is-
44, but we're only seeing 33.
right now, right?
So it is
that's more than
trending
3,
down.
11.
It trends down for a couple of years.
For a couple
and then
years,
goes up again.
which is really for right now, all we need to think about. Because then we'll keep having these conversations year after
Yeah,
year.
I think if we leave this year with the 2 grades, those 2 grades moving, so it gives flexibility if we have to do a third in the ones, once we start moving up into the grades.
So just to take a step back, is anyone comfortable with 4 to 6, the way it's presented?
I am.
I am.
I am. All right,
Great.
I need a motion 4 to 6 as written.
I'll make a motion to approve school choice seats for grades 4 to 6 as written.
Second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you guys for bearing with me for doing this in pieces.
So note for clarity for the notes, that 0 seats in grade 4, 7 seats in grade 5, and 0 seats in grade 6. So we're only choosing to accept at this point 7 seats in grade 5. Again, if we lose people or whatever, administration will come back to us. We can make a secondary vote to open seats on an as needed, or not on an as needed basis, but as things happen and develop. And that goes for all of this. We might make a decision now and 2 weeks from now it'd be like, okay, based on movement, we need to adjust. All right, so now, pre-K, that's an easy one, no seats. Okay, motion?
We're gonna go just grade by grade?
I'm just trying to cross
Do we
some
need
stuff
a
off.
motion for pre-K?
No,
Well,
because
apparent,
Because it's not even open to, it's an integrated pre-K, so
We
It's-
had.
I understand there was some strange one-off scenario, but if it's I mean, I don't really want to vote on something that's not,
All right, moving on then.
that's just me personally. I don't know if anyone else feels.
Well, it was on the chart with 0 and we just voted on 2 that were 0, so it just felt like, I'm okay with it. Moving on. Kindergarten through 3rd.
Again, just so it's on everyone's mind, first grade, not noted here. We anticipate 5 students from Children First. There's 4 residents and 1 that we have been told will be a resident by September, so.
So in addition to.
so that would make us 52.
52,
No, more than that, 47 and 8.
no, 47 and 5.
No, not including the 8. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because we're saying 8 seats, so 47.
It brings us up to 60 still. That's
Yeah.
the number across the board. So
So I personally, for first grade, because we are unclear with the kindergarten, who's coming back, I'd like to see that number come down. And also I feel like when we have resident enrollment, it's usually in the lower grades. So I don't know what I'm comfortable with. I'm not comfortable with 8. I don't know if 4 makes me happy. I don't know if 2 makes me happy, but I know 8 is not making me happy just because there's this uncertainty with Children First. How many are actually coming, if it's 4, if it's 5, if it's none, they might go to another private school, we don't really know. And again, we can open it up. Thoughts on first grade? Are you guys comfortable with 8? Because I don't mind being voted down, I'm just not sure what the number is. So just Jill shaking her head.
Calculator again.
could we do 6?
So we're saying that it would be 47 plus a potential of 6 more from Children First? 5 more,
Minus 1.
so 52.
Right.
So it still brings us.
to 60. Every number's for 60. I don't know.
I have a question. Can I at least have a discussion over here? If 6th grade is 2 right now, right?
No, it's 3.
No, I
Our
meant
current
going
5th grade.
into,
Yes.
22, 23, 6th grade will be 2, yes.
Because we're only 46 and we're not opening any seats.
I'm just trying to do the attrition down. So,
A lot of attention.
because if we have 2 that are moving out in 23, 24, so we would still need a class moving up to only be 2.
That'd be okay.
So right now, if K looks like we're only having 2 classes for that this current year.
If it
22,
stayed at
23.
33, like if it stayed at 33, yes, we would only do 2.
I mean, even if it went to 40, we could still technically have 2. We could still be at
42.
Or
I mean,
42.
it's not
we get
ideal.
21
So
on
I'm just thinking moving forward,
I think that,
how this goes is if we have currently one group that is 2, it's going to be moving out in 23, 24. The ones that start have to be 2. And then it moves forward. So and then we can expand if students move in, depending. I'm just thinking
Yeah, well, I
about
think
how it's moving
part of it
up
is
the ladder.
that Children's First or other
Right.
kindergarten programs, they come in first grade, so you get a couple more students at that point. But I think was the point Audrey was making earlier, that last year by voting in the 9,
We could have
basically
had 2.
eliminated the potential of that being a 2 classroom class.
which would have allowed us to have our fifth grade be 3 classes, which would have been nice for our current fifth grade. Could have been 3 classes this year instead of being the bigger classes that they
Because
are.
that grade is substantially smaller if they
Correct.
didn't have that 9.
And they still could have been small of like 16 kids each.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
I don't know, because I feel like we're still settling on 20, 20, 20 per class. Like, I know that this is,
But if it makes sense to leave more room in first grade, because we know that there's more
I'm fine with,
flexibility, then.
It's the same thing. We could always add more if we
correct,
need
I'm fine
to.
with that for the first grade. But I'm saying we didn't
and
really change
just-
anything in
Just for
fourth, fifth, or
clarity,
sixth.
I don't think
Okay.
anyone is unhappy with the 2020, like living that as a,
I'm not saying they are. I'm saying we have to keep in mind as we're opening up the building to people coming in and seeing a class of 16 students sitting in front of them because of the style of delivery that we offer also, and how often that is happening or not happening, which is again, not our information.
okay, so
Like, I would be happy to vote on this chart.
we've already.
Honestly, well, through the whole thing, I'm saying, just the way that it is, maybe some less in first grade as I'm looking at it. But then I wouldn't be anti this coming back to us in a couple of weeks and be like, you know what, we looked at it and we could actually do like 3 more in this particular grade. Like, and it be more thoughtful, like looking at the kids that we have in front of us. That being said, you never know, because at any point, the whole structure of a room can change by one student moving in or whatever else. And I get that. I just feel like I like the small class sizes. I understand that. But then also when you have 16 kids in front of you for the majority of the day, could we be making more of our day, of our whatever else? I don't know.
So with that, grade 1, I'm
5.
If we do 5, are we gonna do lower in grade 2 then, is my question. If we're gonna go down to 5, are we,
well, I don't think it,
No, grade
I'm just
2 is-
saying,
it was the same number. They were both originally 60. So if grade 1's gonna go down,
I feel like grade 1 is
not
just an
60, grade
unknown
1 is
right
60,
now.
55.
It's not,
But there's
because
5
we
students
know,
coming.
correct,
Well, we don't
potentially.
know. Then they're,
Right.
The current Granby residents.
So again, if we
plan
approve it for
to-
5 right now, we can
gotcha,
always add
yes, yes,
back
we
in
can add back
later.
in. Okay, so keep 1, 2, and 3.
So grade 1 being 5, everywhere else
Yeah,
stay
everyone
the
else
same.
staying, and are we
essentially.
saying K at 0 for now?
I wanted to ask about the K again though, so the K that we have is based on census data, or that's how many that we have confirmed?
The 33 that we have, 33 we have in here are 33. who are
It says
registered.
confirmed at the bottom.
Right, so they've.
I just wanted to
registered.
understand the definition of confirmed, like they're already registered, they reached out to us, like what, is it census data that we know that many people live? So it's 33, and they're, based on census data, there was 11 more that could potentially, but some of those could end up at Children First Kindergarten or Montessori or wherever,
Or no, or
or not.
Yeah, because that's
Or
already
not
data that's a year old.
Or,
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
well,
Yeah, true. Yeah, not
Optional.
mandatory.
so, I would like to revisit the K, because right now is the registration piece, right?
Yeah.
When is registration open until, like, is it 14th or something? I think I saw on the sign.
I thought it was Friday, but yes, technically.
It's,
Yeah,
It was this
but I
past
think
Friday,
too,
but
you end
technically,
up getting registrations
exactly.
right through
Okay.
summer typically.
okay.
Yeah.
So we're saying 5 for grade 1, 3 for grade 2, and 5 for grade 3.
Yeah.
Motion,
I'll make the motion.
second,
I'll second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
So the only one is kindergarten and pre-K that we have left. Pre-K, we're not doing a vote on, standing alone. If necessary, any kind of one-off situation, it would have to come back to us anyway, and kindergarten. I guess we can vote on there's no number in there, so I'm assuming we're going with 0, but I think I'd like to revisit, circle back on kindergarten once we have a better understanding of where we stand, maybe
I would
just-
be comfortable circling back to any of the grades too, though, once there's more of a not blanket, our number 60.
So
you
do we
know.
want to just keep this as a tickler, like we did for face masks, for school choice seats for the next?
I don't think, yeah.
The only
We don't have
tricky
to- We can
thing,
skip over it, but if
Right.
it lives on the agenda, we know to touch base on it, and if there's any updated information, we can.
Was there a date, or was that just the date that you had to have a lottery by?
Is there a date or is that a date that we need to have a lottery? by?
So in looking at the school choice information, I need to look at it again, clearly, but I didn't know if it was a date that you just had to have the lottery by, like a first round, second round, or a date that was like a final date where you could add
No, it's
seats.
really about the lottery. So
Mhm.
what we would do is now that seats in certain grades are open, say we're accepting applications, the change now, not the change, but what we would then do is wait till a certain date. And then at that date, if you have fewer applications and you have open seats, then all those students could come in. If you have more applications and open seats, we would have to have a lottery at that grade level.
But there's no
And the-
date.
And the reason why I ask is just for kind of future reference to come back to this. We would then maybe know we want to see it on a like June agenda or something like that, as opposed to just having it live on.
Right.
That's all. So I thought I saw like a July.
I think the first lottery is before July 1st. It has to happen before July 1st.
Yeah.
And then from there, if you don't get in a lottery, you start a waiting list and we would have another lottery in August if seats
Okay.
became available.
So I guess that was my purpose of talking about it, just maybe we just check in again in June and then maybe again before.
Well, I was just wondering, I mean, is there a lot of movement? Like if we, I guess it doesn't matter.
for kindergarten though, we're really gonna be looking at resident enrollment.
Right, well, just the registration and.
And
stuff.
registration.
I'm just wondering, do we want to circle back sooner rather than later to be able to potentially capture kindergarten school choice seats that we wouldn't
think
have
we're gonna-
otherwise, but while people are.
I don't
trying
think
to
we're gonna
figure it out.
know.
Huh?
I said, I don't think we would know until if we wanted to revisit in like July or August.
Okay.
That would be. when
So
we would
moving it
know.
off till,
And we really do, hopefully, can keep a nest egg of a 2 class because that grade 6 will go to grade 7 and then we're gonna be in a pickle.
assuming everyone stays.
Or C, correct, right?
So June, I'm adding it to the monthly calendar.
June. It'll go on.
Okay, so can I make a motion then to approve 0 school choice spots in grade 6
Can we just do this?
or in kindergarten? Do
We already did this.
We just did it.
Fine, whatever.
You even voted
Do you
on
want
it.
to do it again?
No, I don't. I want to be done looking at this chart. Can I make a motion to be done looking at this chart?
Yeah, we were moving on it. Yeah.
I just feel like we forgot. So cool.
I actually thought we're doing better than I thought.
Me too. It's only 8:15, guys.
Nearly as
Only-
much as we had as I had expected. Next up, mid-cycle review.
Have it in your,
We do. Thank you.
Just look at,
It's done. Where's that, this one?
I wouldn't know, because mine just left, mine just closed.
Actually, Stephen, you should, so is there recurring webinars, you should still have ALS. Or if you just want to send me, I think you can do that too.
4,000 emails back.
It didn't work.
Where's your folders?
I sent so many emails. to you.
Stuff from my sound.
I'm looking at the PDF.
What? I really enjoyed them.
It was in my bag and someone took it out.
So, you created a nice.
Yeah, I loved it.
I gave you red folders. so-
The red folder came in handy.
Place it.
I used that listing presentation the other day. It's really helpful. Thanks for the red folder. It's in my bag.
I think I'm in, but as,
I appreciate it.
not as a panel.
I prefer digital copies.
It's fine, take the option.
I love the options though.
Will I be able to share?
Options
should be.
based.
I'll do that. I'll see what's back now. There you go.
I didn't have anything done.
So, as we said before, appreciate Jill and Audrey collaboration on this. I think, as I've worked through this mid-cycle review, I found that, I look forward to any feedback that you give because this one is my first time going through it, and as I got through it, I was like, I don't know exactly what setup that they want, what it should look like, what questions that I should be answering without hearing those questions. So I think this is an opportunity for me certainly to like take some feedback from all of you. And I also didn't want to put a ton of text on these slides, but I also shared, I listed evidence on here, but you all have access to the folder that is a public facing folder where I put evidence in related both to goals and to the focus standards that we have identified for this year. So I'm gonna just hop right in. I should also mention that, and I spoke to Jill and Audrey a little bit about this in one of the subcommittee meetings, that not every piece of evidence I share is solely coming from Stephen Sullivan. I think it's a team process, so there's things that, there's a presentation that Megan and Sue did at the beginning of the year. There's work that we did around the SEL work that Bill LaJoy really led at the East Meadow School. So there's a piece of evidence in there that's not necessarily a letter from me per se, but just wanted to point that out and make sure that I'm acknowledging that. So we had approved these 5 goals early in the school year and really focused on effective entry, direction setting, establishing a district improvement plan, identify learning priorities, communication and community relations, and then engaged and active participant in the new superintendent induction program. One thing that I'd say that I've learned at this point in the year in this role is, especially this year, I think there's been a lot of things that we have dealt with that weren't necessarily at the forefront of my mind thinking at the beginning of the school year or even in the summer, right? I think even thinking about something as, I shouldn't say simple, but as simple as masking, that wasn't really something that we were talking about at the July retreat. And that wasn't something that, like, we started talking about that in August. And at that point it was masks and vaccinations. And then all of a sudden we saw these huge spikes. And again, it started to consume us. And these questions, are we going to be in person? Are we going to be remote? What is that going to look like? The COVID report. So I think, taking a step back to reflect on that, I think that is certainly taken up a good chunk of all of our time that we may not have expected in the summer, or even through the fall. We did identify these district priorities over the summer, and I think they still remain true. Really around social, emotional, physical well-being, social, emotional, and physical well-being, resource allocation, parent, family, and community engagement, and really about designing powerful learning experiences. We also identified, if you hover here, there is a link that does link to the superintendent district administrator rubric, but we had identified these as the focus indicators for this year, focus elements for this school year, for this process. So to start, really some areas in need of improvement or further explanation. One thing that you'll see referenced in the goals throughout are some timelines, and one thing that's a big part of the first year is this report of entry findings timeline. And that's something that in some ways, like the work in terms of gathering information, listening, learning, asking those questions, that work is ongoing, but getting to that point I think this was actually a really good process to help me be better prepared for that. Because it's not, as I sit through the new superintendent induction program, it's not really a report of entry findings. It's a report of wonderings. It's not that in 1 year I'm going to have these answers. These are things that warrant further explanation, that warrant us as a community, us as a leadership team, us as a teaching staff to dig a little bit deeper to see what themes might emerge. And I think that will come out as we develop the next iteration of the strategic plan. So the entry findings, I think, is a tad misleading because it's not necessarily findings, but some things that we started to scratch the surface on that we're curious about learning some more on. So there are some potential emerging themes, curriculum alignment to standards and or the grade level, literacy skills, rigor and opportunities for more challenging coursework, the math curriculum in general, really elementary, how we're supporting all students, and then the budget process and communication. And that's one that is really challenging, right? Because we're really in the middle of it in many ways and getting new information every day and asking questions. And so these are things that are themes that are starting to emerge. And like I anticipate instead of, I think it might have been March that the entry findings going to come out, I anticipate sometime after town meeting that I will present those. But again, I think this was a good opportunity to reflect on the first 8 or 9 months in the role. Also monitoring the implementation of the district and school improvement plans. I think that's something that we need to continue to explore. We should be recursive to that. That's something that we should be coming back to as a leadership team regularly and talking about that progress that we're making. And I think that's happening in some places. And I think in some places we're realizing that, we need better tools to monitor our progress, or maybe our first approach at something wasn't the right direction. So taking it back a step and saying, what might be a more effective approach. Data dashboard is something that talked about in a number of my goals, and it's something that I anticipate and I expect that we will get up and running. But outside the enrollment dashboard, we haven't gotten to that point yet. And I think part of it is because there's a lot of change happening. Another part is that we really, end of January, early February, just finished our second round of the benchmark assessments, which are, I'd say they're new. We kind of started them in the past 2 or 3 years and gotten to a point, but not gotten through the whole year. So as we collect more data, making sure, and the committee has been fairly supportive of the enrollment dashboard. So I'd like to see that type of thing happening around behavior, attendance, our assessment data, not just MCAS, but the benchmark assessments, things like that. So we start to paint this whole picture. And I think when we think about creating support systems and interventions, and how do we get in and out of interventions, that data is going to be crucial to making decisions, right? That students go into an intervention in September, and if they're still in that same intervention in March, is that intervention effective, right? I think those are some of the questions we should be asking, and what data are we using to say that it is or isn't. And that might depend on the student, that might depend on a lot of variables, but want to have something that teachers can use, that district leadership team can use, and that we can share out to talk about like how that is leading us towards our goals. Implementation of a walkthrough tool is something that we've made some incremental progress on. Right now, the leadership team is using the tool that we've developed internally. And by that, I mean, we're not taking that on our walkthroughs right now, but what we're doing during our district leadership team instructional meetings, which we have one each month, is we're watching videos of teaching, and then independently we're working on the feedback, sharing that out. So we're trying to calibrate. So when we're going in, we're identifying some of the same things, and right, that someone's rating this, and you're not rating in a walkthrough, but just for explanation's sake, someone's rating this as a 1, someone's rating it as a 4, that's concerning, rather than someone has it as a 1, someone has it as a 2, and we can talk about those specifics. And maybe Jill is saying that, I thought the pacing was a little bit slow. It seemed like the students were eager to go. So she had that as a 1, where the other person is like, well, no, it was right on because they asked this question, but they were missing this. So they might have it, right? That becomes like the dynamic and robust conversation that we want to have about how do we improve teaching and learning. And then I think the feedback from those learning walks is a work in progress. What we have been doing is principals providing really whole group feedback. We do 3, 4, 5 walkthroughs in a day. We visit 5 classrooms. The principal sharing back and saying, these are some of the things I'm wondering based on our walkthroughs today. And these are some of the teacher moves and student moves that we saw that we're really encouraged by. Right. So I think we've taken a step back from that because staff hasn't found that to be meaningful feedback. So we want to provide more meaningful feedback. And one thing Sue and I have talked about is, does that mean it's us providing feedback to the principal about what we're seeing so that they can go in and share that feedback? Is it us sharing that feedback directly? Is it us gathering some more specific data through the use of this tool to say, this is where we're seeing our staff as a whole in terms of student engagement, and these are the reasons why. These are the things that are getting us to a level 2 or a level 3, and these are the things that we need to do to go to that next level. Also identifying a need for teachers to respond to the data, right? So we're collecting this data, we're doing the assessments, teachers are analyzing it, and they're saying, okay, I've identified this, but what do I do with it now? And it's not that they don't know what to do with it. They might not have the resources. They might not have the materials to do that. So we want to make sure that they're equipped with those things so that they can adjust their practice based on what they're learning. We talked about systems for building relationships. I don't know what that necessarily means, like building a system, right? I think like as I read that in my goal, like, right, if you go through this process, you're going to have good relationship with kids or families. No, that's not always true, right? There's a human dynamic to it. So I think I need to just like process that a little bit more. And then I had mentioned a communication plan, and I think that's something that hasn't been fully fleshed out through my individual use of social media, through our use of social media as a district, the newsletter, right? We put 3 newsletters out, but that hasn't been consistent. So, and then started doing some videos, bi-weekly videos just recently with the Daily Dino, the student newspaper. So how do we potentially combine some of those efforts to get to more people. So questions?
Well, it's
areas
like-
in need of improvement?
Yeah, under communication plan too, where I kind of viewed and it wasn't talked on here. And I know that we're, visiting the classrooms and things like that too, but that being part of the communication plan is not just with, because this is under family and community engagement, correct? Or is it also like, how are we effectively communicating with staff too? It's just like kind of where my mind went a little bit.
You mean like I just said in response to what we're seeing on the walkthroughs, like that piece? How are we effectively communicating that information?
Same communication in multiple ways, is that?
Right, like, that, and I don't know if that was an area in general that needed to be worked on of, not open door policies, but like, how people felt like their communication, even within buildings and district wide kind of was too.
Approachability?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like even having the budget conversations with staffs and things like that. Like I want to, like, for me, that's part of this piece too, is capturing that. That's part of that communication and sharing. So where I think you are doing it, but you're not noting that you're doing it there. Do you know what I'm
But
saying?
this is for where he's.
Well, that's why I just asked him if it's under considered like family and community engagement, or are we talking about communication in general?
Yeah, I think communication in general was one of the goals around sharing the screen now. So,
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree. Let's,
right? Communication and community relations, right? So, yeah, and that should include our staff. That should
Right.
include our parents. It's not just.
so I feel
not
like where
just
you're
the
not
parents.
capturing it for yourself. And I do see that these are 3 spots that, I like that you're reflecting and that, they're still a work in progress, but I feel like you are also making an improvement with pieces too.
So I
which
guess
should be noted.
for me, if it's a good thing, then it wouldn't be under this areas of need and improvement. It would be probably noted as a
Got it.
success.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think what
So
think
that's,
Audrey's just taking a little bit
There's
of a twist on what I was thinking, and I think what I'm hearing her say is that I'm going out, I'm talking to staff about the budget, I'm doing these things, and that isn't noted in the next slide either, to your point.
okay.
So like I think what I'm hearing is that's just not being fully captured, and I think those of us who have had to do these in the past know that sometimes you don't capture the things that are.
Okay,
Right.
I was
So yes.
misunderstanding. I was
Sorry.
like, maybe he didn't count it as something to be an area of improvement. He was gonna capture it, but since we
Right.
brought it up, he says.
But also like in communication too, like how it is, it's still, I feel like a work in progress even amongst the staff. Like it's kind of like a both, but yes.
Yeah, and I even think about, like inundating our parents and families and our staff with emails, right? Versus how do we decide what are the most important things, right? When I sent out the letter about the TikTok threat in December, that needed to come from me, right? That was district-wide, that was spreading across the country, across the region, that needed to come from me to everybody. But I also don't need to say the same things in a weekly email that Bill and Ally are putting in the RAM report and their East Meadow report, right? So sometimes I'm able to filter communication through them so that those messages are going out in their communications. And it's fine that it's not coming from me, but certain things need to come from me. And I think trying to find what that balance is challenging at times.
Well, I will give you a piece of feedback that someone actually recently stopped me and told me is people are glad that there aren't so many robocalls because they feel like when they do get one, they're more apt to stop and listen to what it is because it's not like, what is this one? So
Check your email.
yeah, so I that's a piece of positive feedback that someone just actually stopped me to make sure. I don't know if it's because they saw this and they wanted it to be noted as part and didn't know how to say it, but I'll just put it in. So I don't know. I think what you're doing is good, but I would say it goes to like what Audrey is saying is something that you're, kind of utilizing the different methods that we have in a good way. People are appreciative of not having a phone call about everything all the time,
Yeah.
you know, so that when there is one that comes from you or from your office, they're like, oh, I should probably listen to this because I don't get them all the time.
Right. Right, like the weekly COVID notification, that doesn't need a phone call with it.
Right. Thank God.
Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, and I think we were in a habit, and I was in a habit even in Holyoke, that you accompany the email with a call. And I don't know that that's as necessary now. And we have more families signed up to receive text messages too. So if it's an important email, we can also just put something in the text that says, check your email, there's
Right.
something on it. Yep.
I think so many people use their phones, but not as phones. It's their lifeline. So they appreciate getting that in a different way. But I just thought I would pass that along as sort of what Audrey was saying, is make sure that you capture somehow that you're sort of reading the audience about how people want to see their stuff. So
Appreciate that. Any other questions on this?
I will say as a comment, I appreciate the highlighting of kind of the emerging themes with just the curriculum process and areas that were highlighted with the district and school improvement plans and kind of where that continued work is kind of still going. Because, we may hear about it in those meetings and then kind of occasionally through the year, but it's nice to still see that woven in through, the goals, this discussion, like the continued work that obviously is still happening, but then kind of be able to check in and see like the action part of what that looks like. So I appreciate that check-in point, and I think this is a nice lens to kind of see that through.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think in some ways, and I know other superintendents in the area feel the same way, that sometimes like that's the first thing that falls off of our radar, yet it's the foundation of who we are as an educational organization, teaching and learning and engaging with students and making sure teachers have the supports that they need. And it can get lost, like when you're talking about masks and vaccination clinics and these things, right? Like the demands of it are challenging. So we're trying to stay focused on that. And I think we're fortunate to have a leadership team that recognizes that as well. And I mean, we've even structured our meetings to say we meet twice a month. Once as an operational meeting, once as an instructional meeting. So Adam, for example, comes to the operational meeting, but he doesn't come to the instructional meeting. And that was also a commitment we made at the beginning of the year to value people's time, where Adam doesn't need to sit in a 90-minute meeting about instruction. And if we need Adam in the instruction meeting, we call him in for the 20 minutes that we need him, and he can go back to what he's doing. And, I think we found some success with the leadership team in doing that, but that needs to trickle down to the teaching staff as well, right? We talk about don't have a meeting when you can send an email, right? Like things like that, because people's time is valuable, and how do we get to that point? And we all probably have a ways to go when it comes to that, but because you're also balancing, there is something nice about like that personal touch when you have a conversation, right? Jen and I could send emails and text back and forth, but sometimes it's just better to pick up the phone and talk through it too. So balancing those things for our staff, I think is important too, and a work in progress. So successes and things that are on the right track. I think to what the point that Jill made, like the district and school improvement plans, those are something I want to say Bill and I had ready like at the March 2020 meeting, right as like the 6th grade conversation was going on as we were going into this pandemic. And then they've never really gotten to the surface again. And I think for some really valid reason, but I think we need these, every district needs them, but if we want to really make improvements to the district and the school, we need to have a plan laid out. And I think our next strategic plan should inform our school and district improvement plans, and those should be updated annually. And we should celebrate our successes. And sometimes we're gonna have to go back to the drawing board and work on some areas of deficiency. You know, the school improvement plan and the district improvement plan were informed by priorities that we established in the summer retreat. Again, I think Jill said this, like there's a through line from this retreat that we had as a leadership team in July, right up until today, and the work that we're doing. Have we checked every box? No. Have we missed some things? Of course we have, but really it has been something that's guided us for the first half of the school year. Really excited about this. I think this is something that you'll hear again from me in the coming weeks that, you know, it's higher now. It's closer to $300,000 in competitive grants that we've gone out and secured this year. And that's money that supplements, right? Doesn't supplant the money in our budget. And we're not just getting money from the state and the town and sitting back and saying, hey, great, we'll take this and that's all we're going to get, because we go to town meeting in the past and like we've said, like we can't do it at minimum net school spending. We can't do it. And I think this is a credit to that. This money is going to find literacy curriculum, which is part of my superintendent report, but I'll say it right now. Sue just updated the grant and we secured another $36,000 to bring that total grant up to $111,000 for K-5 literacy. We found that out on Friday, but this is money that was going to have to be spent in this district one way or another. These are the types of things that are getting cut out of our budget when we're forced to make reductions, when we don't have curricular materials, when we don't have the training that teachers need to best support their student needs. And, you know, there's always going to be more that we can go out there and get. There's been grants that we've written that we didn't get, but we're going to continue to pursue opportunities that are a fit for us. And again, these are competitive grants. We also have grants and things that Title I, federal grants and things like that we use to offset our budget, but these are things that we've gone out and written specifically for specific needs in the last year. And really proud of that work from the team. Implementation of second step curriculum, the CELIS grant you'll see up there is social emotional learning grant. You know, I think we identified, or there was a need identified in terms of like a real tier 1 approach to social emotional learning here at East Meadow. And we really hit the pause button on everything else for about 6 to 8 weeks, where we dug into what some options were. There was staff input. You know, and I would say, and I'm sure there's some staff watching this now that like they might not have agreed with everything that was said, but they started to buy into the process and everybody was doing second step for the first 4 weeks or so. We had it set up that everybody did it at the same time, which allowed myself, Mr. Latoy, Mr. Taylor, Ms. Shepard to come in and like monitor it and see what was going on and see how it was being received from students. And, you know, teachers provided some feedback that, like, while that worked for that period, it didn't work long-term for them with their schedule. So they adjusted and they're offering it at different times. But I think really about identifying some common language and some common understandings around social emotional learning skills. Social workers pushing into more classes at the junior senior high school right now. And I think this is something that we'll look for at East Meadow. And it's small right now. It might be into a wellness class for a short period of time. One of the social workers next door is actually teaching a yoga class that we're provided, that students get PE credit for. So that's an interesting and exciting shift. The enrollment dashboard, I think, is something, right? I think back to watching some school committee meetings about enrollment in the past. And I think we talked about it in the summer about, it was really difficult, I think, for the school committee as well to look at this chart this week and 2 weeks later, look at a different chart and then a different chart and trying to match those numbers up. So by creating something that's consistent, that's easily readable, that we've agreed on when it will be updated, I think that's that's one of those areas where we're more efficient now. When we look at that, I think, Jen said at one point, right, like, it's like, all right, good. Any questions? Nope. And like, on to the next one, because you can look at it at any time after typically probably the second of the month. Stacy has it updated, and that information really doesn't change. The district-wide assessment calendar, I've talked about that a little bit. We haven't really made it through a full year with benchmark assessments in the 4.5 years I've been here. We're on track right now to have 3 assessments done for students in grades K through 10. We did have a little hiccup with our grade 11 and 12. Our goal was for their benchmark to be the AccuPlacer through Hoyt Community College, but they were not offering that remotely. It was on campus. So there's some logistical things that we're trying to work through on that. But we've really stuck to that, and it's been helpful. And I think as we continue to utilize that data moving forward, it'll help us adjust deficiencies and again celebrate strengths. We've been doing weekly classroom walkthroughs at both schools. This includes the principals, assistant principal, dean of students, curriculum coordinator, myself, and director of pupil services. And, I'd be lying if I said we haven't missed a week, but, for the most part, I would say we've attended about 95% of those and really stuck to that. That is in our calendars from now until the last day of school. And it's time that we really tried to stay true to. I had Excel data analysis training. Again, this happened at junior, senior high school. It's something we said we were going to give training and staff on how to analyze the information they were getting as a result of these assessments. We did hit pause at East Meadow because it was running parallel with the SEL work. So we know that we need to get that East Meadow staff caught up and provide some support to them with that. Professional development agenda, professional development Google Classroom as an ongoing resource. I mentioned the operational instructional meetings. We have a running agenda that's basically one Google Doc from the whole year, so we can go back and reference any of our agenda items. Talked about visibility at school and town events. Please let me know if there's school or town events that I could be at. I certainly don't know of every single one, but from the state basketball games to Dino Fest to, the Halloween trunk or treat, things like that. I've tried to be at everything that I could. And sometimes class fundraisers, and sometimes I have some little people in tow with me, but that's part of it too. And I think, that's exciting for me that my girls get to see like the community that I live and work in so much, right? They're cheering for the Granby boys and stuff like that. Like one of them was on court the other night in the middle of the state game, but we didn't get thrown out. We've talked about trying to showcase teachers and students at, I wrote student council meetings. That's not what I meant in the school committee meetings.
I thought maybe you were doing some stuff.
Nope, that was just a different SC, I guess. But school committee, and I don't know that I've done a great job at that, but we're getting there. I think we want to find more opportunities to celebrate that stuff.
I would agree it's on the right track.
And we're doing it, right? We've had 3 or 4 groups come in. I've talked to Charlene Cloutier and things like that. And it's going to be challenging for some people to get groups of kids in here, but even if it's something that a short video that we could display, things like that. I think those are opportunities. And Marcus mentioned trying to have some of our 7 through 12 students here during parent teacher conferences this week, other ways to promote the work that's being done next door. And I've been to, I've attended all the new superintendent induction program sessions, meet twice monthly with my coach. She will be here at one of our meetings coming up. I forget which one we landed on. So certainly have an opportunity to meet her and chat with her if you so desire. And then this is, I won't read through everything, but I did go through and list some of the things under each of the standards. I listed the elements that we identified as focus elements, and then listed a couple of things that would qualify as evidence in each area. And there's some redundancy because weekly instructional walkthroughs might fall into standard 1 as well as standard 4. So there's some redundancy there.
Questions or comments?
It's a lot of work. A lot of work.
I liked how you touched on the evidence on the last 2 slides. I thought that was great.
Me too.
I like the structure. Wasn't sure what you were gonna do with it, and I wasn't sure what to potentially ask for you to, how to structure kind of this whole thing. But I think this is really helpful. I don't have many questions or comments just because a lot was discussed and highlighted, and I know, we know where to find everything to review or to go back through and look at. Because it's, the evidence is still right there. We have your goal with everything we have.
My only other comment too is that I hope that this actually ended up proving meaningful for you, which is also part of this process, that you were able to categorize it into areas that you also are noting that you still are working on and working towards. And I think that having this be meaningful for you too is also important. And I think it was, and I think that's great.
Yeah, no, I think great. We all tend to be pretty hard on ourselves. And I think in any one of our jobs, you go through your day and you work really hard, and like sometimes like, what did I accomplish today? Right? I worked so hard and I'm exhausted, but what did we accomplish? And I think having an opportunity like this to like reflect back on some things I found. I don't even know why I put that TikTok letter in the evidence folder, but I wasn't thinking about that when I started doing this, but I had put it in the evidence folder right around when I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. And, I guess it's good that those are the things that you forget about sometimes, but it is all encompassing. And I don't know that it feels all that much different. It does feel different, but then being a principal or an assistant principal, like when you're in it, like you're like fully engulfed in it. And, I enjoy that. And like the visibility part, I love going to the fundraisers, the games and things like that. Like even the game that you reached out to, and it's just like fun to go and to see. And like when I can bring my girls, like that's great too. And I know that I can't bring them to everything, but
you don't want to bring them to it?
Yeah. You already hear a lot sooner. You guys would be like, all right, you gotta go. But and I think that is something that I talked about even when I was interviewing as a principal, to say like, my interests are your interests as students, and I want to be there, and I want them to know that they have my support, and same for our staff. And I think I don't fully know what that looks like with staff all the time, but I think some of the things that I've talked about around the budget and support and things like that, I think that means something to them as well. And as challenging as that is, I think it's been good to have those conversations with the staff for the past month or two, and we have some more over the next month or two.
I think you have to get to know them in a different way, in the sense that you're going to spend more time listening to what their needs are.
I would say.
Well, I mean, for everybody. That's what I mean.
Specifically,
right?
Yes, and I think I wouldn't say my style, like my leadership style, has changed from like principal to this role. So I feel like I have that relationship with a lot of people there.
I'm just talking about like where it was only in one location. Now you're in 2 locations.
Yeah.
So it's broadening on the needs of everybody in the district.
Yeah. One thing I reflect on in the first half of the year is I was purposeful in not spending as much time over there. And then I started questioning, like, am I not spending enough time over there? right? When I would see somebody in the hall and they'd be like, we haven't seen you in forever. And I know I haven't seen this person. And like, am I in that building enough? Even though I'm in that building a majority of the time, here I was constantly popping in, walking through, just because I didn't live it. I lived that for 4 years. So I feel like I knew it, but
It's also just
you know,
escaping the
like that.
office,
What's that?
escaping the office.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because that's obviously where work is getting done also, but making that point to escape those walls.
yeah. And I think another place to work on, and it isn't listed here, is some of those community partnerships. And I talked about that in my interview for this job is, you know, how do we establish a partnership with, I mean, even think of, we talked about the maintenance department in town, building and ground. GPM is a
DPW?
good example that you built a really good, but, right, like, I think about the highway department, or like, we might have some students who could help do some work that they're doing, right? So I need to continue to build that, and like some relationships have gone up and some have kind of stayed status quo. But I think building that up, I think, is something that I definitely want to look forward to. And, you know, I think, and I said this before, I think we should be a member of the, I think it's Granby's Chicopee South Hadley Chamber of Commerce, right? Like, we have something, human capital, that businesses are often look for. So is there things that we can do through that Chamber of Commerce that might lead to our students developing skills that they need so that they can meet the demands of businesses and workplace that is in our area?
I have connection.
Perfect. You know who to go to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on, we have to vote? It says vote on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure. I didn't think, is there anything else that we need to do? Do we need to do a write-up for mid-cycle, or is it
No.
only for end of year, right?
Only for end of the year.
Okay.
There is no vote. There's no vote.
It
Okay.
just is written on the
It just was
agenda.
I
on the
know.
agenda,
I don't
so
know why.
I think we don't vote for the year end, we just present, I think, right? Or have the discussion, but there's not necessarily a vote, I don't think.
It'll be
A discussion.
for the year end. So in the packet that you received, there is,
There's all, like, what, all
yeah, so
Yeah.
you'll see it, like the superintendent, performance rating, the whole thing that's there. We'll have to, have another kind of conversation and kind of review everything again. We'll be able to, I think it's probably wise to take some time on our own, kind of go through information, do our own piece. And then it might be good to have another subcommittee meeting where we look at kind of compiling each person's kind of individual to our own final overall. Where at that point, it would be given like final ratings, and kind of review that back again in kind of, full session.
Okay.
And that would be why we kind of added all these things in, just to become more familiar with it as we talked through this part of the mid-cycle review.
Just a thought that I had too is, do we have a copy of this mid-cycle review in your superintendent evaluation file also? I can put it there, but not necessarily in evidence. Would that be a spot to have it, or just if it's in the file for just us alone? I just don't want to be like, what day did we have that meeting in March that has that document that we want to look at?
I don't have a problem just putting it in the public facing folder. I'm just
Okay.
gonna make it a PDF.
Okay,
I can do that.
which, it already is. Just a thought that kind of popped in my head.
I think that's a great idea, just to have it. And I think in the evidence, the public facing is nice for people to be able to look and read and refer back. So. Okay, if there's nothing else, I think we can start to move on. We still have quite a bit left. Policy D. We pushed this from last time because Jill, we wanted to make sure you were here for it because you had been working on it. So we just wanted to make sure.
There were a couple of things that we weren't
Oh,
sure on
sometimes
too
there's
for
a few things, too.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
I saw.
And then we talked about some formatting too.
Right, just some like silly formatting, like page 5 is blank. Like, oh, okay.
Some of those were like spacers that,
I was wondering if there was like page breaks or
there must be
something.
a page break somewhere.
Yeah.
I just got rid of it. Sorry, I can't help myself.
Perfect, it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that, I don't even, I'm trying to remember what that terminology was. Adam, that you remembered?
To regional.
Yeah, I'm looking at that.
Mhm.
Right, but it wasn't anything that would have triggered, it didn't say regional.
No, it says assessments. I'm in the paragraph right now. It's
Okay.
On
Is
page.
it page 13 or something? I don't know.
And Audrey, 18 is blank as well.
On page 3. You can just search the document and put assessment or just assess, it'll bring you right to them. There's just one paragraph with reference.
Is it gone now or no?
It's not, so I will.
So we did have. Stretching.
3.
Oops.
I just did that too, all of a sudden it was in 17.
Yeah, it's on page 3.
Oh, I see it. Assessments to member communities shall be made in compliance with the foundation budget, which may blah, 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 and assessing for expenditures, blah, blah, blah. So that whole thing needs to go away, right?
Really?
And then the whole district agreement needs to go away as well.
Is it under annual budget?
On page
Yes.
6, the file should be on page 7.
What's on page 7?
She's doing, it's just the, you're doing the page break pieces.
Assessment.
Well, it makes me
Yeah.
wonder what's missing there.
This language appears to be for regional schools, as does the teal language in this section. The mark changes, so assessments to member communities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then the next paragraph is the district agreement notwithstanding, there shall be no requirement for the annual operation and maintenance budget for the district to be adopted prior to receiving funding estimates from the state. So that doesn't apply to us.
Kimberly had an assessment to what you just read, state, this language appears to be.
Do you still have the original too, Joe?
And this is just a nitpicky thing, but the last paragraph in this section where it says the annual budget for each school operated by the district shall be developed with input from the school council. Should it be, that should be school committee, right?
It might be actually school council,
We don't, do we have one?
full schools. School council.
And that is what it reads.
How do kids? No,
It's like
No.
school councils that have parents. Community members.
No.
Teachers.
So, the annual budget, though, but are we getting those inputs from the school council? And if not,
well, it doesn't, this has not been approved yet, so these have changes on it that would not be taking an effect right now, correct? Until we approve it, and
well, I
then
thought
that
this
will
was
change
already
the
exist-
process.
This was the language that was existing.
No,
we're
there,
just
this
updating
one,
it.
a lot of it was not already existing.
But they should be, yes. To be honest, I don't know if the principals have met with their school council enter, in regards to their budgets at this point. I want to say they both said they did, but I honestly cannot recall 100%.
Typically,
Yes.
one of the earlier, like March,
Iterations,
April
like you're going through, like,
meetings.
this is what we're requesting, and then they might have some ideas that you could take into account, yes.
Okay.
I feel like I don't know a lot about the school council piece though. Like, is it certain people that have asked to be on it, or is it open to the public?
There's an email that goes out,
Mm-hmm.
and the meetings, do they have to be posted?
Yes.
So we'd be able to know when we had one?
Natalie would always post those meetings.
I remember when getting emails, seeing there was openings and getting emails to also state when there was a meeting and what time it was gonna be
Yeah,
and
we
the
would always have it
location.
in the RAM report.
Yep.
Junior, senior high school, really. Nobody was ever banging down the door, so we weren't limiting people from attending at that point. And I think Ally has some more people. I don't know, but that's, I'll be honest, that's a blind spot for me here, but.
And I wouldn't be familiar with alleys, it'd just be at the
I
elementary.
actually remember attending a few of, well, when you were there and Ally were there.
Yep.
And there were 2 East Meadow parents, and we didn't even know that it existed in East Meadow, but we're very aware of it at the high school, just because of how it was communicated. So that's just an interesting piece that maybe to follow up
Yeah.
on.
Yep, I can look into that.
DB-1. Did we get rid of all of that? Because it's still listed in here on page 4.
DB-1R
But DB
DB-1 should be in,
should
DB-1R
be out.
is not relevant.
So I can get rid of that.
No, which one?
We'll
DB-1.
go to page 4,
Budget,
or we can highlight it.
apportionment of expenses.
DB-1 should be in. DB-1/R should be out.
That's the whole budget piece there.
Yeah,
Do you see it there on page 4?
Where the,
It says budget,
Correct.
like,
Well, and I don't,
regional, like, language is.
Mhm.
not on mine DB1-R is right above budget.
But I think
Okay,
it's in the
that's the
wrong
wrong
spot.
file.
That's why I'm trying to clarify on that. Like, so
So
if that should
budget-
not be there, and then this goes here, and then this, let me finish formatting, goes this
And
way.
I'm looking at
Hang
I'm
on.
looking at Kimberly's, I'm not looking at the one you guys.
I'm going back and forth. Try, I don't know what kind of happened.
Right. You know, like this whole section
So
here, where is that legal
DB
ref supposed to be?
DB-1 is the annual budget.
It doesn't say it.
So the title of DB-1 should be annual budget. And then,
So there is a DB1 that says annual budget on page 3, and then
Page 2 says annual budget, DB.
Yeah,
right.
those should both be
Mhm.
there.
So I
According
know
to-
that we're making changes, but some of these should be track changes we can make, because I feel like we're getting ourselves.
Right.
I have the track changes from Kimberly and Tracy.
Yeah, but Audrey is doing stuff in the document right now.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm not changing anything that affected that, other than the deletion of 1 DB-1 where it was.
So you're adding annual budget right
No.
there.
So I can put that back. This is what was there. DB-1R. That's the way it was.
Mhm.
and so that got,
But that's why I'm saying something's wrong here.
So we're supposed to vote on this, so I think that perhaps we need to reinvestigate that, because what we vote on should be the final document. So do you guys want to
we can meet again.
meet again, and we'll bring it forward to the next time?
That works.
You guys are meeting during one of our working sessions or outside?
No, I think at this point we need to have a separate meeting because this
Get it done.
It's not.
So can I be part of it?
Mhm.
That's fine. It's,
Or I
But
can
I
at least,
think-
I can maybe highlight the stuff in there that shouldn't be there.
that's fine, but I think as long as it's coordinating with mask and what Kimberly already,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not adding anything. All I want to do is take out all the references to regional process.
which I think Kimberly already referenced, it was just not
Okay,
when we had our conversation, that's what we wanted to do, and I don't,
It was,
We need to-
it didn't say regional. That was the,
yes, so it's not gonna say regional, but it says member district, so there's some regional
Language.
Jargon,
language
yeah.
in there.
So we're gonna push this to next week, right? The 20, no, 20 is just the 4th.
it's not till the 1st is our next meeting, I thought.
Okay,
So the 12th, I think, is-
no, the 1st.
No,
Not the
No,
first,
it's
the
it's the
fifth,
12th.
I thought, oh,
We're not
Oh.
meeting on the
fifth.
it was, I thought we added a meeting.
the 28th.
Yeah, we were not.
Not the fifth.
We can meet in between.
Yeah.
So the 23rd is tomorrow, and then the 28th was the budget forum, but I thought we had added,
I'm in April.
okay. My bad, sorry.
We're not meeting on the, no, that's March. Sorry.
All right,
So what should I do?
We're meeting on the 12th. That's the next. Okay.
Yeah, me too. You guys can be on first.
so you guys will,
We will
That's a
give a
Friday.
date to have the meeting posted. And then you will have highlights made or?
Yeah, if I can work on it before, just share before, I don't necessarily need to be there.
Right.
I mean, I'd like to, but if I can just give you the information prior, that'd probably seem better.
okay. MSBA statement of interest for 2022. Oh, you guys, yeah, I'm gonna take. I'll be right back. Here we go.
I was just gonna say, don't fall.
I'll be right back.
I saw, oh, there it is. There's two. That's why I said, I'm like, I don't have the notes on it.
Yeah, I think
Right.
I just said the
I
track
know.
changes.
I have the track changes
You do?
too. Yeah. And, wow, that was a moment. It's my work wife's name. Jill had it all written out in her notebook also, which was probably in that email too. But we do have it.
You're gonna have to read that to vote
This is
that
that
in.
statement.
you want to jump to the next one? Next one.
The next one's the
So
summer.
I guess, I mean,
The summer enrichment
We
program.
could jump to
Well, she would need
that.
to.
There's no vote for summer enrichment program, correct?
It's just an
it's just
informational.
informative.
Okay, so do we want to skip to that for now while Jen's at?
Sure.
Okay.
So again, just to notify people, so we are planning to post a summer enrichment program coordinator position. So I've been working with Kimberly. She believes that falls outside of the bargaining unit, so there's no MOA needed. It's not a stipend that's in the contract, so I did check with her first. I've also met with Cheryl and Alicia about it. They were supportive. I think it's an opportunity for a future leader if they want to get involved. And the idea is that the coordinator would begin the process of developing like a summer enrichment program here in Granby. I think this summer, and I know we're a little late to the game this summer. I don't know that where we'll be this summer, to be quite honest, but the way that we see it building is by offering 4 or 6 weeks of multiple options for families over the course of the summer. So it could be a cooking class, it could be a college essay writing class, it could be a running club, it could be, and similar to like summer camp, we would likely charge the families to attend. So it becomes cost neutral, hopefully to start, and then there's another opportunity to generate revenue long-term. I think there's potential to generate significant revenue if run well and by building out a more robust program, but that isn't going to happen in year 1 or year 2. Probably it would take some time to get to that point. So we would like to offer some options this year, but that is kind of a work in progress right now. But I did want to mention here, and we are finalizing the job posting, the job description. So once I have that finalized, I can share it with you all.
That's really exciting. Do you think this would be like a half day?
Likely
program? Or full day?
It could be a combination,
Okay.
right? We could see some courses going from like 8 to 10 and then having another 10 to 12 course.
You could sign up.
Right, that you could sign up for both, or there might be some 8 to 12 options. Again, it's an idea that we're baking as we're moving along with it. But I do think, in crunching some numbers, I think it could be neutral, like no cost, even in year 1 potentially, or very minimal cost. And moving forward, I think there's real opportunity to generate some revenue. And I'm not saying hundreds of thousands of dollars, nothing like that, but I think opportunities where we could be, supplementing a para position or something like that down the road, or helping out athletics or a programmatic need or a text that we might need. So just another source of revenue that we might be able to use in the long run.
And it's as you were examples that I'm glad you provided, it's more of like an extracurricular versus not necessarily curricular. Because that was the first thing my mind went to, was more of a curriculum based.
Yeah, I think we could very well have some curricular options, but not totally focused. I think more of an SEL type focus, right? Keeping kids active. Not quite, maybe summer camp, but
I like it.
it's just
But not like a summer school, more camp.
Right.
than
For all students, not just would this be for all students?
Yes, K through 12. I mean, there's potential down the road if we get it up and we get into a good place and have a solid foundation. We could have conversations down the road about opening it up beyond Granby as well.
This is very exciting.
So, it could, right? So as we think about academics, we don't always think about music lessons, but I think music lessons could be something that's offered in something like this. And there is an academic connection to that. It could be individual or small group. It could be a cooking class. It could be soccer camp. It could be, I think the way that I presented it to Cheryl and Alicia was tap into your own passions as an educator, as a human being, as an adult, and can you bring that to students and instill a love of learning around or being active, running, yoga, or whatever it might be. Doing that, gardening, yeah.
I guess that would be my only follow-up question is, has it been brought up to the next level of who would be interested in being, obviously, like staff-wise, of staffing it? You know what I mean? Because
no, and then the idea, we've talked about it at the administrative level, and our thought is it's an opportunity to empower a teacher or a para or somebody who really wants to run a program, and they would be building it, of course, with plenty of support.
because the year of what cannot be named. They had started like an after school, I want to say Stella was in like a knitting club or something like that, a crocheting club. And it obviously was abruptly ended, but we paid for it. We were the ones that, prompted that we were interested in it by, that piece too.
Yeah.
So it was also happening during the school year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I could see,
Was there the bird watching that just ran through my mind? You know what I mean? Like,
an extended day possibility.
right.
I don't know where we'll be at the end of the summer,
Right.
but like.
So, but
yes,
it is along that notion where those staff members that are interested in sharing something that they might already be interested in, kind of take it upon.
Yeah, and I like, the way I see it in the summer, we might run programs for 4 weeks or 5 weeks, but Jill might just do week 3, you're doing this bird watching, and week 2 and 4, you're running a anime club, right? Like those types of things.
Right.
Bird watching and anime.
At the same time.
Right.
There you go.
Week 5,
Chicken
combine
keeping.
them.
Amazing.
So again, it's like a idea right now, and like we've been having that conversation, and we're late, right? And on March 22nd, planning for the summer. But if we could get a couple things even up and running, I think it would be an opportunity for us to learn a little bit about what it would take for next year. And if you get that right person in place, who do they recruit? And if you get that adult in place, who can then recruit students? So
I just think with the younger grades, we have to make sure we're keeping in mind, like, how would families be getting there? Like, so half-day session sounds great until it becomes, how does, mom get a second grade student from dad, parent, adult, that kind of stuff too.
mhm.
So it can be as successful as we hope it to be.
Yep. So that was really information, and again, I think some of these things, I'm not sure if I should bring it to you sooner or wait until it's further down the road, but I felt like we're getting close to a point where we're gonna have the posting ready, so.
I'm going to throw out that I like hearing about this stuff ahead of time. I feel like if families are viewing this, it's kind of giving them a heads up, in another way too. So I do appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Back to
Going back to MSBA.
MSBA. Sorry, I just couldn't wait.
No.
I ran earlier.
So MSBA, so Ally and Adam and I have met a few times. There is a copy, a PDF of the FY22 statement of interest in the folder. This is due no later than April 29th. And if you remember last year, we needed a vote from the school committee that then needs to go on letterhead that Jen needs to come in and sign. And then we also need a vote from select board. So I'm starting here, and then if approved here, I'll go to select board.
Bring it with us next week.
My feeling is.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
My feeling is that we should submit an application every year until we don't need to submit another application. And we might be in a similar position 1 year from now, I don't know, but every year we don't submit an application is a year that we don't have an opportunity to get invited to partner with MSBA. And that's every year you don't have a chance to get reimbursed up to 60% or so for upgrades to facilities, which I think everybody would agree that the junior senior high school is in need of. So
So the one that's in here was from a prior year?
No.
This is what we're voting on.
FY22,
Statement of interest.
I don't know why it's FY22. To be quite honest.
Okay, then
Second, we submitted it in FY22.
Yeah,
mine up.
but to dig a little bit deeper into your question, Jen, it's basically the same application that we created last year. We made some updates to it. There's some other updates but the information really has not changed.
How come
So is that why some of the information,
There's 2 docs.
maybe I'm looking at the wrong one
There's
then?
this one and this one.
Oh,
Word
okay.
document.
The PDF is the statement of interest. The Word document is
But I have to.
the vote that needs, like, needs to go verbatim.
But the PDF is one from a prior year because some of the names and stuff on it.
No, because Cheryl Stanton and Emery wrote that plan
Master plan.
in
That was
2018.
And we were just using that one.
It's the master plan. It's like the overarching thing, right?
Yeah, like the facilities, yes. So,
So their names can't be removed.
well, because they're attached to the master plan.
Got it.
Yeah, I was just curious because it was the names that was throwing me.
yeah, and it says 2019.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, because that
Yep.
was the year. Yep. So again, a lot of that was just taken from last year's application.
And just applying it and seeing where,
And I
Still
think
doing
the feedback that we got was the application, right, the application essentially got us to as far as we could go without getting invited in to participate with them. So,
Also adding in that it doesn't cost us anything to express interest.
absolutely. Yep, this is not an agreement to partner with them or anything like that. It just
Statement of interest.
allows us to review, or allows them to review our application. And then it would anticipate that leads to some follow-up conversations. Again, I think we learned going through the process this year that once invited to participate, you're looking at 5 to 7 years. So again, every year that we don't apply, we're just pushing that off another year.
Mhm.
So that 5 to 7 is a key number to keep in mind because we had been talking about holding off on doing some things because if we get a new school, but the earliest we would see something is 6 years because we're like, this isn't even going to be decided until next year. So just food for thought because I was getting myself tripped up on some of that and I'm just being Captain Obvious for the rest of you that are keeping up that I was lagging. So I think we need to do two things. First, we need to make a motion and second and vote that we want to go ahead. And then I have to read into the minutes this resolved piece because that comments on the vote. So can I have a motion to accept submitting a statement of interest for MSBA?
So I'll make a motion to accept the MSBA Statement of Interest 2022.
No second?
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye. Resolved, having convened in an open meeting on March 22nd, 2022, prior to the SOI submission closing date, the School Committee of Granby, Mass., in accordance with its charter, bylaws, and ordinances, has voted to authorize the superintendent to submit the Massachusetts School Building Authority the Statement of Interest form dated March 22nd, 2022 for the Granby Junior Senior High School located at 385 East State Street, Granby, Mass., which describes and explains the following deficiencies and the priority categories for which an application may be submitted to the Massachusetts School Building Authority in the future. Section 5, replacement, renovation, or modernization of school facility systems such as roofs, windows, boilers, heating, and ventilation systems to increase energy conservation and decrease energy-related costs in the school facility. Section 7, replacement of or addition to obsolete buildings in order to provide for a full range of programs consistent with state and approved local requirements, and hereby further specifically acknowledges that by submitting this statement of interest form, the Massachusetts School Building Authority in no way guarantees the acceptance of, it guarantees the acceptance or the approval of an application, the awarding of a grant or any other funding commitment from the Massachusetts School Building Authority, or commits the Granby Public School District to filing an application for funding with the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And done. Okay. So we're good to do that. Fabulous. All right. Continuing business, school capacity enrollment dashboard. Do we feel that we need to go over this after our lengthy school choice? Nope. Okay,
I'm good.
loving it. Is there anything else on school capacity or enrollment dashboard that we want to cover? Or are we ready to just move along? All right, next up is mask policy.
So last time we had talked about, potentially adding a line that would basically lift this proposed mask policy. Should CDC, DPH, DESE make any change? We did consult with our attorney and she advised against that, and felt we were in the best position to put this policy in place. And if we had to meet again, even on an emergency basis, to do it that way, rather than wait for another entity to change and be put in that position, because we don't know how that might go.
And I just want to be clear, because it's been a couple of weeks, is this guidance still the truest and most up to date?
Good question, yes.
Because I'm getting confused with stuff that's happening in my place of business. And so I just wanted to make sure
I
that,
haven't heard of anything.
Yeah, this is a long way to say that masks are optional. Students who choose to wear masks or choose not to wear masks will be supported. But they have to wear them in the school health offices and days 6 through 10 after a positive COVID test.
okay. Can I have a motion? Wait, any other questions, comments? Audrey?
Nope. I was ready to make a motion.
Motion,
Motion made.
second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Superintendent's report.
Fortunately, we had Marcus here tonight and he took most of what I was going to say, so. One thing, to make sure you're all aware, we mentioned it before, Adam and John Sullivan have been working on a facilities needs assessment for Granby Junior Senior High School. The plan is to present that to you all on April 12th. It won't require a vote. Our goal with that is that we have one document that identifies all of the facility needs related to the junior senior high school, so that can be shared with school committee, select board, finance, whoever needs to see it. And really that document shouldn't change unless an improvement is made, an update is made, or something else happens to another part of the building.
Should it not be for both buildings? I mean, we had the lightning strike that has taken 8 months. So if there could be things, I know we had a leak and a drip and a here and a there. It should really be comprehensive for both facilities, like a tab for one and a tab for the other. Because just because it's a new building doesn't mean stuff doesn't go wrong, right? So it would just be a nice place to have it. I think personally,
Can we present, because it won't require a vote, can we present this to you and then add?
Yeah, just add, I'm just saying,
Okay.
I'd like to see it be fully comprehensive at some point so that there's a place that we can go to,
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I think our goal, the vision with this was to kind of create a formal running tally of everything that, I won't say it's wrong, everything that needs some fixing or updating in high
Attention.
school. And obviously, that list far outweighs here. Some of I understand what you're saying. Most of that stuff is kind of one-off, like we fix it and it shouldn't be a reoccurring problem.
it shouldn't be, but it's nice. I would like to see, for me personally, like there was the whole thing with and I'll say whole thing, I'm not like, oh, whole thing, but the car chargers. It was there, it was living, we didn't know that it was there. Someone brought it to our attention. Apparently there was an Eyewitness News Channel 22 investigation on it as well.
Yeah.
But, those kinds of things, we didn't know, but if we're kind of trying to keep track of some of those things,
Mhm.
it would be nice to have it in a living, breathing document. And obviously, the building next door is the place where we know that there's stuff that happens, but it doesn't mean that there's not going to be things that could happen here.
Again, totally agree. I just think our vision for this was, it was a long-term, there was a list of things that need long-term, they need short-term attention, but might take long-term planning
Okay.
to do. But I do agree that we should have a document that kind of informs.
Yeah, I think East Meadows is gonna look a lot different than the junior
Of course,
section.
and I would expect it
Shorter,
to. All
yeah.
I'm saying is,
But
it should exist. It should exist. Is all.
I like what Jen's saying though, too, because I feel like it's like anything else. You make a plan, but unless you make sure that you're writing it out and using it to kind of reflect upon, which I think there's a benefit in that.
Part of, you know, sort of going off on a tangent, and I shouldn't because it's 9:30, but it's one of those things where the high school didn't get bad overnight.
I'm here for it.
You know,
Me too.
East Meadow is
Exactly.
it's
Let's
not
not-
even brand new anymore. It's already 40 years old, right? So if we don't keep on track of some of those things, we're not gonna know to keep track of those things, you know? Like a bathroom door could be, someone could have hung on it and now it's askew. And if we don't keep track of it, it's gonna be,
Did the
Well,
benches ever
as
get
with
stained?
everything, there's a lifespan on it.
Right, okay.
so that's, so go ahead.
Parent teacher conferences at East Meadow this Thursday and Friday. That is, this Thursday and Friday, March 24th and 25th. We will have Granby Junior Senior High School students present. Allie and Todd are working on a plan around that. It's new for us, so how robust will it be? I'm not sure, but we met this morning. They were talking about a design and modeling class having something, potentially the robotics class, bringing it, like Marcus mentioned, the cars. So doing some stuff in the foyer. So when parents come in, it won't be these formal meetings, but if they have questions, students and staff will be there too.
And I like it because that goes to what Audrey's been saying. It's like showcasing what's being done next door.
Um,
Did you have a comment?
No,
What?
nothing.
Oh.
Nothing. I'm good.
Kindergarten and pre-K registration are both open for next year. Kindergarten, a letter was sent out to everyone that we had on the sentence, but please, if you're watching this and you haven't received it, you can contact the main office. There is some information on the website. Same with pre-K, the registration information is available on the website. Grade 10 ELA MCAS started today. They are testing today and tomorrow. MCAS also kicking up at East Meadow this week. Grades 3 through 6 are beginning practice MCAS tests in ELA, and then they begin ELA testing next week. ELA testing runs really through the month of April and then math in the month of May. I mentioned this before, but again, I want to thank Sue Crago for her work in securing additional funding in the literacy grant. We had originally received about $75,000, a little over $75,000. There was an opportunity to write an amendment for foundational literacy that was written, and we found out Friday afternoon that we got another $36,000, which brings that grant total up to $111,000. It's a really tight time frame on that grant, that the materials need to be identified, approved, purchased, and delivered by June 30th. So we have a team of teachers here working with Sue. They're looking at different curricula. They're going to start making some decisions and get those materials ordered. And then there'll be training and resources and everything that goes with it. So I'm very excited about that. And then SAT test dates are out May 7th. If students are interested in the May 7th date, they have to register by April 8th and June 4th. There's another test date and they have to register by May 5th for that one. That is all I have.
Quick question. Just a follow-up about getting information out for the budget meeting next Monday. Is it going to be going out hopefully this week in the RAM report and the update for East Meadow? I know that this one had, it wasn't in it
Yes.
on Friday, but just to make sure.
Both of those, yes.
And additionally, I was speaking to a community member and she was like, why don't we still use bulk mail? Like as a way to get things out like that too.
It's so expensive.
Yeah.
Most people recycle it. Just the reality.
She also specifically said, I don't want to hear that cost is the problem, actually.
But it is, like, when you think about how much postage is, that's not cheap
So I
to
guess
do.
it's different with bulk mail because I had the exact same response and then.
I'll tell you, like, our company, which, I mean, no one does bulk mail anymore. Like, there's no more mailers, flyers. We used to send to thousands of people. Like, no one does it. I mean, it's too costly for what you get out of it, unfortunately. I mean,
So are we creating, because I know last year I went around and hung up flyers before the budget hearing too. I'd be happy to do that if we have any sort of flyer, if we can update last year's.
So that's for the public hearing, which is different than the public forum, which is Monday.
I don't know. I feel like there's just not been much chatter
Right.
about it going out and it's a week away.
Right.
You know,
Have you guys got your 5 friends that you're bringing to the public forum on Monday?
I already said I don't have friends. You make me say it twice.
They don't have to be friends, they can be acquaintances. I'm sure you know five people.
Well, here's a good spot to remind everyone that we do have a public forum on Monday at 6 or 6:30.
6:15.
6:15.
6:50.
No, 6:15 tomorrow.
Oh, 6, then it's, I don't know. I guess I don't know.
Okay, we'll
Hold on, I'll
get
look.
that.
I believe it's 6:30.
Must be 6:30.
we didn't really, so you're doing childcare too.
Same. I thought it was 6. Yeah.
Oh, maybe, yeah, I think I said I can make 6:30.
I have 6:30.
For which one?
Monday. Public forum.
I have
I'm trying to
6:30
find
to
it.
8:30.
Did I say?
I have 6:30 to 8:30.
That's what I read.
I remember.
This is a forum, not a posted meeting, correct?
We're gonna post it. It'll be a posted meeting. And we're gonna hopefully have,
Did you do your DCAM cameo, Jen?
interactions.
I didn't, I forgot about that.
Hopefully here in person, but certainly if it's through Zoom, then we'll need that.
Would you want Q&A or chat table?
So we said, we went all over the place. I'm looking at the email.
We can chat.
Yeah.
We can chat. I'll say any possible way we can get community engagement, we'll do it. So chat, question, answer, if we gotta promote them to talk, however, but you and I can.
What did we send out regarding getting help with the kids? Did we ask for, I assume we would put a
Yes,
time
we
limit.
have.
That was that email that had a bunch of stuff on it.
So,
They'll be here from 6 to 9 p.m.
So they're coming for.
So they're coming for 6, we should come in for 6.
that's what I thought, because we had said.
If we put it earlier, it'd be better. That way, if the kids were here and were younger, we said that we, an earlier time would be preferred. And they were gonna be in the gym and we were gonna be in the cafeteria.
We'll be in the cafeteria. Just that way.
Mhm.
With snacks.
And,
Snacks, 5 of your friends.
yeah, so we did it, we asked for them for 6 to 9, so.
Okay. Great.
That means not posted yet. right? So,
Okay. So 6 o'clock,
Let's do 6.
so you can make that work. Okay, so
Jill and all of her friends.
She said she can make you, the date was fine and that either time.
So reminder for next Monday, the
28th.
28th, from 6 to 9 at the East Meadow Cafeteria. We'll be having our FY23 public forum. We will have childcare, refreshments, and hopefully a lot of community engagement.
Quick question, follow up. So we have this public forum coming up. Then we are, because this was hitting a certain date before town meeting
So
too, correct?
So what we're doing Monday is presenting the
Budget.
as his budget at this point to school committee,
Mhm.
just a presentation, and then the public forum where we can have back and forth with the public.
Mhm.
The public hearing, which needs to be done by April 12th meeting, is we can present it again, but that's where you guys vote on what number we're going to bring to town meeting.
But during a public hearing,
There's no interaction.
no input.
Yeah, it's just us presenting the budget and you voting the budget to the public.
I feel like this is still new for me, so I just want to
Yep.
make sure I'm getting it
That's why
correctly.
we're doing a public forum, so we have the chance to interact with
Get feedback.
the community.
Have we always had one date only in the past, or has there been multiple dates in the past to try to really, give multiple opportunities for people to
So
engage?
we've tried,
We are providing other opportunities to, we
Your
have been
five
reaching
friends
out
will
to
go.
GMBA, Booster Club, GAA, Granby to Go. What else are we meeting? GAA, we reached out to GMPA, Booster Club, Granby to Go.
We've already reached out to them about this public forum coming
No,
up.
we're gonna go to them.
we're going to, I know we have Granby Development.
We're gonna go to them at their meeting, whatever
Okay.
meetings they have scheduled, and present our budget to them.
Okay. I'm open to knowing whenever those dates are too, and if I can partake at all
Sure.
too.
Yeah.
Love my friend game.
Yeah,
Adam making me feel bad about it.
minor problem we ran into is how late our joint meeting is, and we really couldn't do anything, so we kind of had an idea of where
Yes.
the outcome of that, so I think even in the budget calendar, we had a couple of public forums built
Right.
in. But that was under the assumption we would have had the joint meeting already.
Before now.
Correct.
Your time.
Correct.
Just checking.
So, to answer your question, the goal would be to have
Multiple.
Yep, but that's why Steve and I will go to these organizations and present.
I'm happy, like I said, if I can, to be a part of those things too, because I feel like budget is an area that I still need to kind of learn more on. I'm not, to be fully transparent on that part. So I do find a benefit in hearing the questions that people ask,
Good.
and hearing that feedback, because when community members do reach out to me and ask me questions, this is one area that I'm like, ooh, let me check my notes, because I don't feel as confident and comfortable as I do in other aspects of this role. So,
And I've said this, I mean, you guys can come meet with me at any point, or Steve, but meet with me at any point, we can come up with maybe like a checklist or 5 to 7 points that, like, I hate to say it, but like you guys know, if there's a question, like this is the answer to it, right? I mean,
right.
there's a lot of things that Steve and I are going through over the last few days that, like, not that I didn't know, but like we've never, and I'll touch on this when I get to my updates, unless I can just start my updates now.
Go
Awesome.
for it.
Actually, one of my updates was bring your 5 friends to Monday, so since Audrey doesn't have any, you guys are up for the 5.
Don't look to the side.
Okay, you guys need to make up for 10 now, so anyway, bring your 5
Stephanie's
friends.
got it.
Charles will be there with some light refreshments. Again, we'll have childcare from 6 to 9 on Monday, the 28th.
Monday, 28th, 6 o'clock.
Okay. Alex will work on a link. All that information will be.
Twitter's already a link. We could just make modifications.
Okay. Like I said, I want to make it as easily accessible to anybody to interact with us.
Yeah, absolutely. And, yeah, we'll talk.
Okay. So that's that. FY23 quickly, there's really, not much of an update to where we are in the process, other than Steve and I have met yesterday, today, all day Thursday. We'll be meeting all day Friday, putting the presentation stuff together. Hopefully we'll have a little better idea after tomorrow night's meeting on where we need to be. but we've been putting a lot of work in, did our first round of cuts, we'll share all that stuff with you guys next week. We've been putting in a lot of work. I know this has probably been the most collaborative, engaging, and thoughtful budget process that at least I've been a part of. So I think, aside from the numbers, I don't feel like that'll ever please anybody. I think the process to get to where we're going has been really, really productive.
Yeah, and I think we've taken an approach where we have a responsibility to our students, our families, and our staff to build, yes, a responsible budget, but also a budget that makes sure that they have adequate resources, materials, supports, so that our students have at least a level playing field, if not a competitive advantage against peers their age in this area. We're not going to get it all in 1 year. We're not going to, right? So we do need to be responsible, but there's some things that drive the cost and that are way outside of our control. And I think we've been responsible and we're being thoughtful in some of the decisions that we're making now. And but like Adam's reference, I'm sure there's going to be a number that we're asked to get to, and we can certainly do our best. But I think ultimately, the decision comes down to the town and how they value education for their students.
So do we think we'll get that number tomorrow?
I don't know. I honestly, I'd rather not speculate here. I don't know. We've all been a part of those meetings in the past where we come out. So I don't know.
Okay.
I would hope so. That would be our hope, is that we have some direction as to where we need to be. But again, what Steve keeps saying is that we've been asked for too long to do the best with what we have instead of just doing the best for our students and educators. And that's the approach that we've taken this whole time. I think we'll certainly do a better job this year of, again, if there's cuts to be made, we will certainly let everyone know what the impact of those cuts were. We've been to staff meetings, we've let them in on our process and kind of our thought process and what we're thinking. So we will let everyone know that there is a lot of thought and time and effort put into building it. And again, it might not be that number that everybody wants, but unfortunately, there's a cost of doing business in education, and that's kind of how we've approached the budget this year. So again, I think it's the best that I've been a part of. It's been enlightening, so I'm pretty excited to present it and start the conversation.
Well, it's nice to be on the subcommittee and hear the collaboration with everyone.
Yeah. Sorry, number one.
Don't even say it.
He's not letting no update. There's number two. There are two FY22 year-to-date reports in there. One is school lunch. The other one is general fund. So the next meeting, April 12th, I'll give one through March. On these, they say through March, but it's really just through the last warrant that we did, which was this week. So the April 12th, I'll give through a true through March, which would be the third quarter. And now this is when we'll start, I don't want to say cleanup, but doing projections, have a better idea of where we'll be for the end of the year. So if you guys want to those have any questions, the school lunch one, again, I'll touch briefly on this. We're having a program review from the state. They come in every few years to do a program review on the district and their food service program. A lot of it is geared towards the program and the day-to-day functioning of the program, meals, nutrition, all that. So they did a lot with Ken today. We are right now, as you can see in this year-to-date report, like we do, because of the last couple of years and everyone having free lunch, we do have a pretty significant surplus in our food service account. Again, there's very strict guidelines on how we can spend that money. So that balance and how much we have at the end of the year will certainly play out. There will be some plans we probably need to make on how we're gonna spend that or plan to spend some of that revenue over the next year or so. So I just wanna make everyone aware that we haven't had this problem where we had that much money in the account over the last few years. It's usually we're in a deficit a pretty large amount. So it's a good problem to have, but we need to have a plan on how we're going to spend that money.
Now, has there been any movement on whether or not free lunch will continue?
So the latest guidance from the state, and I've actually been in touch with Chris, who's our district manager at Chartwell's. We're gonna wait a little bit to get a notification or some type of communication up, but it'll be back to full, parents paying for lunch next year. It seems a little late for them to, unless there's a late push. We've got some emails about letting our local legislators know, families can't, and rightfully so. I don't, it's gonna be tough for them to say, if you last few years, you have to pay for meals and now you have to go back. So unless there's a late push, I don't see that happening, but I don't know.
And there's gonna be a cost increase because everything's gone more expensive. So,
Exactly. And in the meantime, we're going out for a new RFP for our food service provider. So I had this conversation with the lady who came to do the review today. We have a kitchen that's next door that we don't know what the future plans are for.
You're hitting all my questions right now. Keep going.
Potentially a food service vendor coming in. So there's a lot of moving pieces. And then add to that, families having to pay for lunch again. So it'll be interesting next year.
So go ahead and ask your questions then.
Well, do we have any updates on vendor? Because that was, I feel like we were going out to bid.
Yep, so I just sent a draft RFP to the town on Friday, I believe it was, Thursday or Friday for the review. So hopefully we'll hear back soon on that and we can move forward with the process.
And then update on the kitchen, because that's one of the things we've talked about as far as.
We have not heard anything about the capital improvement meeting.
Yeah, we reached out for a capital improvement meeting at the beginning of March.
So are these some of our questions that we should be writing down for tomorrow?
Yes.
I have them written down, yes.
Perfect. I don't, but I'm like, I feel like, yeah.
So,
I'll say last year at this time.
Or when the capital improvement meeting is the question.
Yeah, last year is March 30th. March what?
30th.
March 30th.
Yep, at 6 p.m.
Wait, what?
That's capital improvement?
Capital Improvement Committee for filming it too. It's on our shoot schedule too.
It's on what?
It's on our shoot schedule.
How were you made aware of it?
It's on the town website. If you go to the town annex, they have a bulletin board.
Yep.
They have all the meetings posted. Legally, they have to have all the meetings posted on that bulletin board.
So capital improvement meeting is.
So wait a minute, so that's a committee meeting. Is that the same thing? Like, is there a committee and that's different than what we're talking about? Is it
No, so
possible?
all I know from last year is that there was, I had reached out to Chris on asking when, and it just happened to be on that night, just the committee alone was meeting to review the request. And then there was a subsequent meeting, which I'm assuming is the one Alex is referring to, that's next week.
No, it's a review.
Okay, so then it's just the committee reviewing requests, and then there's another meeting where the departments are invited to talk, but we can certainly get some more information. That seems a little late to be reviewing them based on last year, but that could just be like the process, so we can reach out and get some more information.
Okay. My question
Sorry.
is, lack of kitchen in the high school, will that impact our ability to have a food service vendor? Chartwell's was sort of, I'll say, for lack of a better word, suckered into it because it was deemed unacceptable to use because of COVID guidelines. And so it sort of like spiraled out of our control at that point because we had it reviewed. Will having everything come out of East Meadow impact our ability to find someone? I mean,
It's an excellent question and one that we've kind of thought about, and now we're at the point where we really need to think about it. It would affect us, I think, only because if it's not Chartwell's, which it certainly could be, it might not run so seamlessly the first year, right? And I don't know, now we're going back to where students are paying, if we can afford that. But unfortunately, that's not, if we go out to bid, if somebody comes in lower. So it's an excellent question. We'll have to wait and see. We can only hope that Chartwell's continues here. That being said, it's still not ideal to have Chartwell's operating out of here.
Well, that should impact their vote too, because, you know, I'm just sort of worried, I'm worried about it as we go out there, because most places, I would assume, when they go out to bid, they have they're in a functional situation.
Yes. Yep. It's a good question. I don't know how to answer other than.
I just didn't know if you had heard from
Yeah.
anybody, you know, like, I just don't know. What were your other questions, Audrey? You said you had gotten most of them, but I don't know.
No, I think for him, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
I'll ask it another time because I just don't want to keep going. All right. CES?
We meet next Wednesday, the 30th.
Okay.
Probably during the couple.
Okay.
Put on your earbuds.
So, before we close to executive session.
I have another question too.
Okay, go ahead.
So when you started talking, one of my questions I had also was about upcoming MCAS, because again, looking through the updates that I get of things I hadn't heard it talked about, and I know it's happening in my building, you know, and kind of going on. So then when it came up too about the district-wide assessment calendar, so then I'm like going on the website trying to find that, stressing me out, like, because I can't find stuff. So like, is the district-wide assessment calendar out for the public somewhere? Like, I know, I know there is one publicly out there in my, but then, yeah, like, so I'm like, I hadn't heard about it, and I know it's not, I think there's a benefit in families knowing it's upcoming, but like, other than you saying it, I had not really heard about the dates yet.
They used to always be in the reports.
They weren't. on
Other than you
Friday.
saying it just now, I had not heard the dates.
Well, I was making an assumption that maybe you hadn't read everything that was.
But the district assessment calendar,
Usually is posted on like a website, no?
well, I'm just thinking it probably extends to any
Assessments.
screeners and assessments that are happening district-wide, which is probably why it's been I'm guessing that from my own experience, why it's an internal document.
Which is fine.
MCAS dates might look a little
Right.
different.
Usually it's like the windows and stuff like that, like of
Right.
when things might be occurring.
Well, and it even sounded like, Stephen named when the MCAS was happening at the high school. Maybe we just don't have the dates yet, Priest.
And I have not read Ally's,
somewhere,
so it could very well be in there.
but it wouldn't be for East.
No, no, it would be
I-
just for the school.
Correct.
This week is
Is
just
this on the calendar?
practice tests at East Meadow.
And you said they were in April, so. Just looking.
For next week.
Minutes. Just. Like I said, I wrote it down as you were saying it because I was happy to hear it, but I hadn't really heard. It was in my notes to ask about it. I know at some point there was some sort of update again done to the website too, right?
There was a little while back, but I don't think the assessment calendar.
Which is, yeah.
This is the first year since I've been here that we've had the assessment calendar, so
And that's
Yeah,
fine. I just
certainly can
didn't,
be
like, at one point I was trying to find that
forwarded.
information out and, you know, my kiddo seemed to not know anything about it either. Which also, so when, and again, I'm trying to think back. So we had done like assessments in, February, was it happening, January, February? And you had mentioned it too. Like, is that when we're
I'm
saying
sorry.
the assessments that were being done with kids, like the IXLs and like, is information sent home regarding that? Like, or is that like internal information? I'm not saying it needs to be sent home,
Yeah, I think it should be included. I'm not checking every communication, so it should be.
Okay, so if like a family member has felt like they would be interested, this is an opportunity when they're having their conferences for them to have those discussions and
Yes.
ask
Yes,
how their children
absolutely.
did.
Teachers
And,
should have access to that.
and I'm
data.
sure maybe that's the plan, to talk about it at that point.
Yeah, teachers should have access to that, absolutely.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Anything else?
No, I'm good.
Oh, reminder, tomorrow, joint committee meeting. You have the questions that we've been talking about, but primarily it's
One of them
focused,
just answered, but yes.
primarily it's focused around the budget for tomorrow.
And public is welcome tomorrow,
Yes.
6:15.
Here. And there is a link, so we'll be in here. Anyone that.
I'm good, thank you.
Anything else? We have just a few things that were pushed to the next meeting. Anything else that we want on the agenda for the next time that you can think of right now? Okay, we can do a regular email if something comes up with. If that's all, then we're gonna go ahead to close this part of the meeting. We're going to vote to enter into executive session under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Part A3, to discuss strategy with regard to collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the committee. The committee will not return to open session. Can you do a roll call, please? Aye.
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 All right.